Before we approve the agenda, we have a couple of things. Lauren would like to delete old business A3, which is the C3. Well, it's number A under old business, number 3. Policy C3, board meeting, public participation of board meetings. It's going back to the policy committee. So that one is off the table for tonight.
So I had feedback for it going back to the committee. Should I just reach out to the committee directly or?
Yeah, if you've got something for that one,
I
yeah,
do,
just send an email.
Okay. great.
There's a correction,
Okay.
yeah, there's a correction that the policy committee actually wanted to make.
Okay,
And
great.
it doesn't show up in this, so it has to go back.
Okay, thank you.
And then we're going to add under new business, section E. And that's for the Cavendish Town part-time art position to hire. So that'll be a discussion action. Is that all?
Yep, new hire.
Does anyone else have any other deletions or corrections for the agenda? Okay.
Where will we be? We'll be talking about all the PCB stuff in the facilities director's report.
I would imagine so, yeah.
Yep.
If not, that would be a great time to ask the question. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Can we, I'm sorry. Can we talk about appointing a Cavendish member to replace Dennis Riley on the restructuring?
It's on here.
It's-
Oh, on the restructuring. We don't need to, and I'll explain that later.
Okay.
Motion to accept the agenda was Katie, second. Rick?
Yep.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Approval of the minutes. May 18th, our regular meeting. Were there any corrections? Other than the one that Katie already made? Okay. If not, do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
Make the motion.
Josh made the motion. Is it second? Lois, thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to accept the minutes of May 18th. Is there any discussion
I'm gonna abstain.
on the 18th one? Okay. All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
And we have one abstention, so you got that? Okay. May 24th is our special meeting. What is your pleasure?
I'll make the motion.
Josh makes the motion to approve the minutes. Second?
Second.
Lots of seconds. Take your pick. Katie, Steve, Lois. Any discussion? Oh, sorry, Lois, not on that one. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And May 31st special meeting, which was our principal one, right?
Okay.
Lois is going to make the motion on that one. Josh is going to second it. I
Sure.
saw your hand. Any discussion on those? All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
To correct, I'm sorry, I'm abstaining.
Oh, sorry. She's abstaining from the May 24th. No.
The Zoom.
That was May
it.
24th.
Yeah.
Yeah, May 24th.
So
Do you then need to? vote on the
also
others?
the
Yeah.
May
I'll accept
18th
it.
one or instead of?
I'm sorry,
Also the May 18th one, because that's
instead of,
instead
yeah,
of.
no, sorry.
Okay. Public comments. I don't have anybody signed up on our sheet. Do we have any hands up? Nope. Okay. Well, let's go to our administrator's report.
All right, find my piece of paper. Our last day of school for students will be tomorrow. It's an early release day and also graduation at the high school. Keith was going to be trying to join us on Zoom, and hopefully he will talk a little bit more about that. The Cavendish Elementary School sixth grade ceremony is happening tonight, which is why Amy Bowen is not here. Unfortunate timing. And Hester Andover, sixth grade was last night. I'm sure Catherine will talk about that later. As you know, all of our administrators within Green Mountain and within the SU have been hired. Just to have the report go out, we extended a 2-year contract to Dale Mann. He's signed. He's been keeping us updated about his transition plans. He was actually here today, getting some fingerprinting done and talking with Allison at central office. So he'll be here ready to begin work with the first day of July 3rd because July 1st is Saturday. So we have an open special education position at Cavendish that is still open. We're still open. We're hoping for the best. Let's see, we had filled it, the teacher rescinded her acceptance. Our part-time art teacher, we talked about this at the last meeting, found a full-time job. Maria French, she's terrific. We're very happy for her, very sad for us. However, as we're going to discuss when we get to the new hire position, Julie Kelly, who has been our part-time PE teacher, who also worked for many years as a parent, has been a social studies teacher as well, has stepped up and says she's willing to do that for a year with an emergency license. She knows the kids, and we'll talk about it a little later. So hopefully we have all of our other teacher positions full. There are still some open para positions in most of the schools, so if you know people looking for work, please give us a call. Todd will talk more about the PCBs. Our meeting was held on June 7th with a panel of people from the Department of Health, the Department of Environmental Conservation, and the AOE. We're going to manage it. Everything is going to be okay. We will do what the AOE and the Department of Health and the DEC tell us is acceptable and approved. And we're pretty confident that we will be running school in this building for all of our students in an environment that is safe and appropriate for them. Let's see. I was up in Burlington, May 17th, talked a little bit about that at our last meeting. We had an excellent keynote speaker at the Vermont Superintendent Association Conference. His name is Jameel Adams. You can take a look at his website. He works in the Situate schools, and he has an approach to student management that he calls LIT, standing for Love, Inclusion, and Trust. He was just a tremendously inspiring speaker, and Emma Bastola has worked at contacting him, and we think we're going to be able to have him come and speak with our staff at the opening meeting in August. His message is, in these difficult times, that we should all be trying to be the love that hate cannot defeat. And he just does a beautiful job of talking about how, regardless of what your background, political beliefs, how you approach the world, you can find common ground and find a way to work together to do what's best for kids. It's a beautiful thing. I'm a deeply cynical person, and I found him to be just really inspiring. So I'm delighted we're going to be able to get him to come here and speak with all of us. Our all board retreat is going to be on July 20th. We have the location reserved, the Cornerstone Room at Jackson Gore. We will do breakfast and greetings at 8 o'clock. Lunch will be provided. I hope everybody will make every effort to attend. The Vermont School Board Association facilitator will be Debbie Singizer, who is newly on board with the VSBA. An agenda will go out to everybody shortly. We'll review board roles and responsibilities. We will have someone coming in to do a Roberts Rules and Open Meeting Law workshop. So, which is something I think, whether you are a veteran board member or new, it is a good thing to review. And then in the afternoon, we'll go over our progress on this year's goals and set our goals for the 23-24 school year.
Can you say the date again?
July 20th.
It's a Thursday.
Yep. And we had enough people say they could come on that date for it to be a quorum, but I know it's been a month since we went through that. People's schedules change. So I hope people will do their best to be there. Those of you who have been there before, it is a useful and meaningful thing.
Can I just say one thing? We will not be having our regular meeting that night, so it won't be like an all-day thing and then meeting at night.
Yes. Yeah, no, we will not be doing the TRSU and Ludlow Mount Holly Board and Green Mountain Board do not have a regular meeting in July. Our board meeting for the month is this retreat meeting that is about a 6.5 hour long. The climate survey results are up on the TRSU website. I'll be adding a summary of the changes over the last 3 years. I'm sorry, I still haven't gotten to that. And then we'll be discussing the process for sharing open-ended responses when we meet next. but you can have a look at those, at the multiple choice responses. The General Assembly adjourned on May 12th, but it's reconvening for a veto session on June 20th. The veto session occurs at the legislature as part of its adjournment resolution, includes language allowing it to reconvene to address vetoes. The General Assembly adjourned in May. It's been transmitting bills that it approved to the governor. The governor receives a bill, has 5 days to sign it into law, veto it, or let the bill become law without his signature. So far, the governor has vetoed the budget bill and signed the school safety bill into law, and you'll be seeing its first reads to mandatory safety policies. A number of other education-related bills have not yet been sent to the governor. Because of the timing of this, and we're waiting for those education bills to go to the governor, the Education Legislative Collaborative that usually gives us a report that I can share with you is delaying their final legislative report until all that business has been completed. So you won't hear all of that final wrap-up probably until August. They anticipate issuing their final report in mid-July. In the meantime, there's some bills that are available that have passed and some that have not. The governor vetoed H494, an act relating to making appropriations for the support of the government, which means we're still waiting for some other things. The one that I'm telling you all of this information about, though, is yesterday, on June 14th, Governor Scott allowed H165, which is an act relating to school food programs and universal school meals, to become law without his signature. So he'd also sent a letter to the General Assembly in which he discusses why he doesn't want to put his signature on it, because he thinks it is an unnecessary additional property tax pressure, but he is aware that a veto would, if he vetoes it, it will be overridden. So he doesn't want to further distract. Anyway, it is becoming a law without his signature, and for us, that means that there will be a requirement and will be funding that we will undoubtedly see trickle down to us to help to provide. But it is overall good news for our students. Wanted people to be aware of that. And there is a webinar in August on the VSBA about best practices for board reports. I hope we will talk a little bit about what you all want for board reports when we do our retreat. And then the last thing I want to say before we do other reports is that this is Catherine's last board meeting. And I just wanted to take a moment to have people recognize the dedication and time that she has put into being an educator here at Green Mountain. We appreciate all of the work that she has done. I have something for her that, of course, has been delayed in transit, so she's not getting that tonight. But I just wanted to take the opportunity to congratulate you on your retirement. I hope it's going to be a wonderful thing, and we appreciate all of the work that you've done for our students over the years.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Is that it?
That's what I've got.
Do we have any questions for Lauren?
So I have a question, but I think it can go into our board retreat about what we want to hear on the board reports.
Yeah.
I would like to, we hear all over the place about teacher burnout, staff burnout in schools. And I would love to have more information about what's going on with our teachers and how they're faring. So I don't know if there's conversations that you're having with the union or whatever, but I think it would be important for us to hear more directly about the actual staff in the school. And we can certainly talk about it more at the retreat, but that's just something that's been coming up for me.
Thank you.
If anyone wants to send thoughts ahead of time, you can send me for any of the reports, superintendents, principals, Cheryl, and then we can correlate a list that we can talk about. Okay. Principals report. Well, you're on.
Great.
As the lone survivor.
Well, thank you. My report this month really has just all of the amazing happenings that have happened in the last few weeks. end of May and up until now. I did send it late because I wanted to make sure that I got the graduation picture in there of the kids from last night, which was beautiful. They did a great job. The teachers did a great job putting it together. And even though we had to do it inside, we like doing it outside. It went off without a hitch. Graduated 27 students. And Mr. Hill came and welcomed them to Green Mountain, which was lovely. We've had lots of happenings. We had a real fire drill last Monday, which we were all just so proud of the kids and how they did. And it was a nice event for us for me, to know that the police and the fire were actually going through the building in a real, we don't know if there's a fire in there. So it just felt really good that things went really well. The kids did a great job. Was very reassuring. And we've had the police around just being at all of our activities recently this spring, and it has been really wonderful. They were teaching the lead and alert with the older students, but they also just have been coming to all of our events and been really involved, and it's just been a really nice thing. So we appreciate their time and energy. Let's see, we've had field day and lots and lots of field trips. So I'm grateful for the bus drivers who were willing to take the kids to all these places the last few weeks. It's been so good for the kids. We did have an arts in residence a few weeks back, beginning of June, and some pictures in there. There's a link to a video on Zappa, which is really great. We did get to have our all-school photo. Again, finally, it's been a few years. This picture that you see isn't great. We did get a better photo shipped to us today that is going on with the kids tomorrow. Let's see, what else? PTG has been really active. They put on a bunch of things for us and helped out with a lot of events this spring. The marching band is amazing, thanks to Mallory Gregoris. And Julie Kelly comes over and does our flags. She's a busy lady at Cavendish and is also still helping out with flags for us. So Girls on the Run had their event, and any questions? I did just put all the activities in because there was so much. And in answer to your question, Kate, I have throughout the year put some things in about how much is on a teacher's plate. This year especially, we had a lot of new things that they were working on. It was a lot. I acknowledged that today in our last staff meeting, as we were just talking about all the great work, how hard everybody is working. Yeah. But a lot of good things happening too.
Any questions?
Question?
I will say the day that you had your live fire drill, it was really reassuring. The police put out social media of what they were doing and how they were checking the building. And, for public that saw this stuff, it was really very reassuring.
Yeah.
So good job to our police department
And to our school staff.
and to our school staff. It's nice to know that when you have to do it, it works.
Yes.
Like when you need to get out of the building.
And in a real situation like that, it was very reassuring because we had multiple people who normally would have done certain things were not there. And other people knew what to do, and you would never have known.
Nice.
That it was just, it's so reassuring.
Good. All right, curriculum. Who's talking to us today?
I'm talking to you.
Okay, is this your last time?
No, I think unfortunately you get me in August.
Okay.
And Julie will be talking to you.
Oh, Julie will too. I'm sure Julie is much more profound than I am today. So the first thing I'd like to do is I was invited, there was a teacher who was unable to attend this week, who was doing part of the YES program, and on Sunday night, he emailed me and said, you know how you said if you needed anything, I should call you? And I said, yes. So I've spent this week working with 15 students of varying ages, putting together a play, which was performed this afternoon. to a not quite full house, which was fine because then people were off doing other parts of the YES program. But they were just absolutely incredible. The audience was in stitches. It was just a beautiful, beautiful thing. So thank you for letting me come and play.
You're getting applause from Pam O'Neill.
Oh, I am?
The whole time you're talking, she's going, no.
No, they started really, I mean, they were kind of at loose ends, and then 2 upperclassmen stepped in to kind of support the work, and then I got to come in, and it was superb. They're incredible. So kudos to them. So the not quite so interesting news, the Agency of Education has hired an outside auditing company to look at how ESSER money has been spent over the course of recovery. And we're like the deadline of everything is in sight. So I have the pleasure of meeting with him several times this coming week. There's a lot of reporting. There is, although this is kind of an audit, there's nothing punitive about it. What they're doing is collecting information to see where there's a cliff that we're going to drop off when we're not going to be able to fund things, and how we might then find alternative ways. So this is like a whole separate conversation that is kind of layered over the top of everything else. And that'll take the majority of the summer to get all that kind of tidied up. We have this coaching grant that we have. I'm meeting with them next week. It's coaching for 3 years. We have control over what, who, how many, when, where, why, pick a thing. So we'll be rolling that out. I'm also working with Kyle Giacomo, the after-school director, doing some work on a supplemental grant that will make sure that everybody has some kind of access to after-school programming this year as a bridge into the next 21st century grant. So we'll be doing that work over the summer. We have lots of really wonderful training. A number of us are going to the BEST conference, which is the focus that we have is looking at MLSS and how do we do that system wide. So it's a very intense 4 days of just intense work and looking at this with experts from around the country.
I don't know that.
It's multi-layered system of
Oh.
support. So the Agency of Education started out calling it NTSS,
TSS is
tiers,
the one I know.
and then they decided that tiers sounds too big, and they really want to look at small changes that have big impact. So
Thank you.
anyway, so they're not always, they kind of oscillate between the two, but they're working on saying MLS too.
Now I know. There was something.
It's
Only smaller.
there you go. I'm sorry, that oversimplifies it.
Yeah,
but
no,
yes.
that's perfect. That's good for me.
Then we have the admin retreat coming up this summer. And following that, I'll be doing new teacher orientation with Julie and Emma, new para orientation. And then we have the all board retreat coming in July, and there's the summer. So there you go.
Any questions?
And thank you for letting me do the fun stuff.
Are you gonna quiz us again?
Oh, God. Thank you.
Okay, Julie, you're on.
Thank you.
Okay, so the start of the math report is gonna tie to some things you heard from Emma about supporting the whole child. But before I get into that even, I just want to remind you of the 3 Bs I've talked about in pretty much every report. B for belonging is related to the graphic in the upper left corner. You may have seen this graphic with respect to social justice initiatives around the world. I'm going to put it in map context. The diversity that's a fact is our teachers have in front of them students with diverse learning needs every day. Inclusion is an action means that we are happy to have all those students in the room and accessing grade level content in addition to supporting them with whatever other needs they may have. Equity is a choice, relates to the planning that teachers have to do to be able to meet all of those needs and not just teach the lesson in front of them that is grade level content. And when all those things happen, all the students in the room feel like they belong. So that's the outcome you get, and that's how you support the child. Principle number 1, you've seen from Anne in previous reports from her, and this is the believe B. I'll just read it. Success begins with committed educators who believe that all students can learn and can achieve high standards as a result of effective teaching. This is straight out of the MLSS field guide that the AOE has put out, and it is guiding principle number 1, and it's guiding our work as well. And then the last B is for bravery, which is the lower left-hand corner. Instead of talking about mistakes and misconceptions, which puts people on edge, we like to think of them as takes and conceptions, so that it's how you see it, and it's an attempt, and it's a willingness to take risks, because that's how you know. So Emma shared this graphic in her presentation, which is talking about nurturing the whole child. I'll go ahead and highlight the cloud for you on this.
Thank you.
The cloud says when a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower. This has as the main part of the mental model, SEL, social emotional types of considerations, and you can see literacy and numeracy in the soil of the picture. I'm going to put, well, in a second, I'm going to bring that image back, but it's going to be a forest that's about the math learning and a similar concept. Before I do though, I have a couple slides here that relate to ruler, restorative justice, and frameworks for those sorts of social emotional types of work. I think Kelly sent around the PDF, and if she didn't, I can do that. This wheel in the PDF is interactive. If you click on it, you'll go to a website and you can highlight any one of the circles around these 5. Think of this framework, which comes from the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, as sort of like the Common Core Standards for math, but for social emotional. All right. I've highlighted the classroom piece of the image here in terms of what sorts of things happen in classrooms related to social emotional, and you can see there can be some explicit instruction around social emotional learning, either in academic classrooms or with guidance counselors, for example. Our teaching practices and the types of learning that we engage students in, like cooperative learning, project-based learning, and things like the YES program, those also have an impact from within the classrooms. And then integration of SEL considerations into the academic curriculum and all of disciplines. Also linked is, it's a short video, but in the interest of time, I'm not going to play it tonight. Restorative practices is like a field of the social sciences. So to me, that's sort of like a discipline, like math is a discipline. And it also sits in our system of layered supports, and students have core needs that all students need. And then there are additional needs that certain students will require that get wrapped around that in additional layers. Last connecting piece is Ruler, which you've heard about. The elementary schools are implementing Ruler. Ruler is an approach, and if you go to the Castle site where that wheel was, you will see Ruler listed as one of its select programs. So restorative practices is sort of like the science of math. Castle framework is sort of like the Common Core math standards that guide our teaching and learning. And Ruler is sort of like everyday math in the elementary school classroom. It's a program that provides support for students and help teachers do that. So here comes the math go. I used this slide right before a math problem in the last report that I did a couple of months ago. And it is a Ruler tool. So what happens here is you try a math problem. And as you try the math problem, you're also thinking about how it makes you feel to try that problem. That's the R and L, recognize and label, part of Ruler, the feelings that you have. What caused those feelings? That's the understand, the part of Ruler. And how did you express or regulate your feelings? So what did you do in that situation once you named and understood your feelings? That's the express and regulate part. So here's the math problem. I'll give you a few minutes or a minute to give it a try.
I mean, I'm willing to be wrong.
I'm going to show you some work and then you can compare the results. Okay. I did not see anyone reach for their phone and their calculator. Okay.
We're old school. I did it old school.
I'm gonna show you some work from some second graders. Okay. So that is the approach one second grader took.
As you can see, the student is using a counting strategy. Very persistent, drawing out that counting strategy. So it worked, it got an answer, not super efficient, but it worked. This is another student who is also counting, but counting in groups, so counting by tens. But it's still a counting strategy. However, they are showing in the work at the bottom that they have some concepts and understandings of how to represent that visual counting strategy in the form of equations. Interesting that the student counted up to 57 and then had to back up to get the answer, but it worked. There's another strategy. This student is similar to the second one I showed, but realizes they don't need to start at 0. They can just focus on the difference between the two numbers in the problem, so a little more efficient again. Also showing some abstract notation abilities.
It's a second grader?
These are second grade work, yeah. And I'm gonna guess most of you did it that way.
I did it that way.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so all of these ways are valid. Some are more efficient than others. Some are more transparent than others, explaining why they work and how they work. The concern with the approach that most of us use, because that's the only one we were offered, is that that is not accessible to all students. And so what our teachers have to do is recognize that all of these are valid, and what is the trajectory you want each one of these students to take to get to a most efficient method, which may be the US traditional algorithm, but does not have to be. In fact, the Common Core does not expect students to know how to do this with multi-digit addition and subtraction until 4th grade. And if they can find other strategies that are just as efficient, that's okay. So my point is that there are lots of ways to look at it, and that equity piece that I talked about at the beginning is being able to honor all of these ways and help students move from them toward more efficient ones. Okay, so here's my analogy to the forest model. This is from a video that All Learners Network, they're an organization whose mission in Vermont, whose mission is to provide equitable teaching and learning to all students around math. So what I did is I took some screenshots from the video, and what you see here is it's tier 1, layer 1. They're using both terms. And so think of the trees in this picture as the students in the classroom, and the things around it, the environment that the classroom provides to all those students. You need a little bit of rain, you need some sun, you need some soil, and all the trees look different. Some of the trees in that forest need some additional support. So the orange tree is shown needing a little extra rain, showing some space between it and the apple tree because they draw on the same nutrients. The tree here is showing that it needs some fertilizer. There's some extra irrigation over here, but all the stuff that was there before is still there. So the point being, you're not replacing anything, you're adding to what was there for all students. And then layer 3, similar idea. Now you can see certain specific trees, i.e. certain specific students might need extra layers of support and individuals helping them to meet the needs that they need met so that they can achieve the same goals and outcomes that every other tree or student is trying to achieve. So that's sort of the math version of the analogy. Okay, so now into the normal stuff report. Which is what are we learning, how are they doing, how are students doing, and what are we doing to make that better. This is just sort of the general model of mathematical proficiency. It's both the content, which is this complicated interconnected web. The numbers kind of talk about which grade levels focus on those concepts, although the lines indicate that it's all over the place between grade levels. And then the left side is about how those things are learned. It's not enough to be able to just do the multi-digit addition algorithm. You want to understand how it works, be able to recognize when to use it. And that's what all of the strands of the mathematical proficiency group are about. The teachers are also using the high leverage instructional practices that all content areas have been asked to use since the beginning of this year. We adopted these from EL Education's high leverage practices, making some of them not EL specific. Turns out 5 of these are almost exactly the same as what the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics say is the most important for math. And then there are 3 or so others that they say are important for math as well. Okay, so the thing I want to focus on in terms of what we're learning about for tonight is fluency. And I've got here 2 definitions of fluency. One is procedural fluency, like can you do an efficient and fluent multi-digit addition algorithm of some sort. Notice the definition includes 4 different characteristics: flexibility, accurately, efficiently, and appropriately. Fact fluency is a specific type, and that's like knowing your addition facts, knowing your multiplication facts. Also uses, that definition uses some of the same terms: efficient, appropriate, and flexible. That sort of fluency takes time. It's developed over time by conceptual understanding, understanding relationships between numbers. It's not developed by memorization, which again is how most of the adults in the room learn their facts and is difficult for some students. Automaticity means you can do it quickly. You do want to be able to do it quickly, so you're not drawing on working memory resources when you're solving more complex problems. But if you go to quick too fast, you end up relying on memorization and you compromise the overall process. So automaticity comes after the strategies are in place for the students to actually know the facts. Then you can do time tests and try to help them get faster at recalling the facts that they've learned to know. So for addition and subtraction, it's a progression from kindergarten through 2nd grade. In kindergarten, it's about fluently adding and subtracting within 5 using counting strategies and using hands, math hands to do it. If you're up to 5, you can do all that on one hand. Grade 1 extends that to fluency within 10. So now you're using 2 hands. And now you're not necessarily relying on counting strategies, but other reasoning strategies, which I'll give you some examples of in a minute. And then in grade 2, you up the ante again and extend it to 20, which gets you through all of the single digits, including 10. And then, as I said before, the multi-digit US standard algorithm isn't expected until 4th grade. That doesn't mean some students won't get there sooner, but it's not necessary to get there sooner and to be on track. Okay, so here are some of those strategies. This is a table of the addition facts 0 to 10, okay? And so the old way used to be to try to memorize them all, find a way to memorize them all. Another way is to focus on sections of it and look for structure. So you see the diagonal in dark orange there is all doubles facts. If you take a number from the top row and a number from the left column, it's 0 plus 0, 2 plus 2, 5 plus 5. The lighter orange is because that every step along the way, you think of plus 1 and plus 2, because that's not too much of a reach. So if you know 4 plus 4 is 8, plus 1 more is 9, okay? And that gets you that middle section of this table by reasoning through it as opposed to memorizing it. Then you go the other direction and what everyday math calls partners to 10. So all the pairs that make 10, and again, plus 1 or plus 2 to make it a little bit wider. Notice there's some overlap now. So students have 2 different ways to know some of these facts. Then we look at plus 0, and that fills in another section of the table. And there's not much left anymore, and you can get that by 10 plus something and have created overlap all along the way. So instead of memorizing a table like this, you've got 4 strategies that you practice and work on, and when you're done, you know all the facts. Subtraction isn't explicitly called out because we want students to understand that subtraction is just the inverse of addition. So you could think of every subtraction problem as an addition problem with a missing number instead of a missing result. So that brings us back to the problem that we talked about. When the numbers get larger, like 56 and 27, the student down here who sort of checked their answer by adding those to their results, you don't want them to have to spend a lot of working and memory energy on what's 9 plus 7. That's where you want automaticity. They should be able to do that without having to worry about what is that math fact. Instead, they can focus on, well, when I'm subtracting 7 from 6, I don't have enough money, so I need to exchange a 10 so that they can apply their brain energy to more complex tasks. Okay, similar idea with multiplication and division. This goes through grades 3. It continues in 4, but 4 is starting to get addition into bigger numbers like millions and extending math facts into multiplication facts into multi-digit, but as well as fractions. But in grade 3, you're really wanting to, it says memorize, but as long as you have an efficient strategy and no one can tell the difference between whether you memorized it or you just figured it out quickly, who cares, right? As long as it's quick. And then it's not till grade 5 that you know the tradition, you have a traditional US algorithm for, stacking the numbers one over the top and doing the multiplication that way. It's also not necessary that that's your efficient strategy if the student can develop another one that's going to work in all cases. And then division comes in grade 6, a fluent algorithm in grade 6. So it's a similar situation with the multiplication table. Instead of the whole table, you take it piece at a time. Times 1 is a concept. If you take a group of 2 one time, you still have 2. The 2 facts, the times 2 facts build on what they knew about the doubles addition facts. It's similar, it's just another way to say the same thing. 5s and 10s in the earlier grades, they do a lot of counting by 5s and counting by 10s. So now they're thinking of it not as counting, but groups of those. And it's a multiplication strategy, but it fills in more of the table. The younger students don't know it as the community property. They'll probably know it as the turnaround rule. Doesn't matter if I say 8 plus 9 or 9, it's the same answer, which basically cuts the table in half. And then a focus on the square numbers and the patterns that come with that, leaving a few spots left. But there you could say, you know, if you're struggling with, say, 8 times 7, but you know 7 times 7, you can say 7 times 7 is 49 plus 7 more. So it's that sort of strategy. Okay, so that's the what are our students learning? How are we doing? This is the benchmark spring session for K6 just ended. And so what you're looking at is the TRSU level data. We have not had time to dive into building level data, so we aren't in a position to be able to talk about that. But I just did want to highlight a couple of things about this. At the top, you see the results from winter compared to fall for K6 math. And at the bottom, you see the results from the spring. Some things to point out, if you look at 0 is kindergarten, our achievement percentiles comparing spring to fall is 73% proficient. And in winter to fall, it was 63. So that went up 10 points. That's a good thing. If you slide over and look at growth, growth also went up 10 points. That's what we want. We want both achievement percentiles increasing and growth percentiles increasing. When you look at grade 1, the achievement percentile slipped a little bit, but the growth percentile went up. So that's a good news story. We are going to look into and want to figure out why achievement percentile slipped, but we're glad that growth continued. When you look at grade 4, we see that we lost ground in both achievement and growth, and so we need to dig into that deeper. And again, this is at the TRSU level. When you look at individual buildings, you're going to see different things. This is the numerical version of the data. There's also a visual version that tells you a similar story, mostly focused on growth. So what you see here is, this is 0 is kindergarten. The blue bar is what the observed growth is. What did our students actually show for growth? The yellow diamond is the target for spring. And then up here is winter, and you can see the gap between what we showed and what the target was close quite a bit. From the 4th grade, we see the gap has occurred and we need to figure out what's going on. And then you can see the other grades as well. The visual one is a little more clear to see, but it doesn't call out the achievement piece of it. Okay, so for moving to grade 7 and 8, grade 7 and 8 don't take math growth tests 3 times a year like the elementary school students do. They only take them in the fall. So what you're looking at here is fall of last school year compared to fall of this school year. And you can see that the median percentiles are the achievement number, similar to what I talked about in the last chart. Those are pretty comparable, pretty much the same. And you can see that the 40% approaching proficient in 7th grade went down to 30%. The emerging did not go up. So what we've been able to do is improve the approachings into either proficient or proficient with distinction. So that's a good news story for 7th grade. And then you can see similar data for 8th grade. Okay, so this is high school data. Mr. Hill talked about this in his principal's report as well, so I don't want to be redundant. But what he and I did is we took the scores from throughout this year, some were fall, some were spring, and we created box plots for each of them. So this is grade 9 for math, and the way to read this is to say these 2 dots out here are considered outliers. They're considerably higher than the rest of the data set. So rather than have them skew the data, they're highlighted separately. The median for 9th grade was 400. That's our score as a cohort. The benchmark is 450, so we're falling a bit short. And then in grade 10, same thing, the gap closes a little bit, however. And then in grade 11, and it expands again. And the SAT is not grade specific. That's data for any student who took SAT. They aren't all seniors because some underclassmen take SATs. So we do have some work to do here. It's a math report, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, except to say that in the packet, there is some reading data comparable to what I just said to you about math. And Emma and I have talked next year when it comes benchmark time, rather than have a math or literacy report, we'll probably have a benchmark data report that includes both. But when we have more time to actually dive into it, we get more specific. What I will say here is, if you look at the same sort of box plot for evidence-based reading and writing, the gap there is a little bit of a gap in grade 9, but it's much smaller. And in grade 10, our score is actually above the benchmark. And again, on the SAT for the students who took it, we're actually above the benchmark. Okay, what are we doing to continue to improve teaching and learning? I've talked about this before. OGAP stands for the Ongoing Assessment Project. It's a Vermont-grown, research-based initiative that's about using formative assessment to improve teaching and learning. So basically the idea is you look at works that students have done, like the work I showed you, and you make your decisions about what to do next in the class and for the individual students that way. They've got a whole item bank, they've got a whole professional development and learning progression, and we are offering that to TRSU teachers, multiple sessions of it, intending to get everyone to have a chance to participate. We've been fortunate enough to have the principal, like one of the founders and the author of I think she's a co-author on all 4 of the books, at least 3 of them. Beth Holbert has been our facilitator for the first session and will be again for the second one coming up in June. And this is her sort of elevator speech on what OGAP is about. It's about making math educators smarter users of the program. It's not a program. You still need a program that gives you coherence and works you through all the lessons, but it's a way to use the student work within that program to make decisions about how to improve learner outcomes. And then Phil Darrow is one of the writers of the Common Core, and Beth attended a conference where he was speaking, and he was really trying to emphasize the importance of driving decisions from data, but more specifically actual student work, not just numbers. This is a picture of our first OGAP session. You might be able to see the back. There it is. And I've shared with you some of the comments from people who attended. We had 13 people, I think, attend this first one, and it was about counting and additive reasoning. So kindergarten through first and second grade, although we had a high school special educator attend, and that was great. We had administrator there. You can see the feedback from that person, a classroom teacher. I'm going to read that one. It says, just wow. I love that we could give specific examples of struggling students and understand where they are, why they're there, and where to go with it. I have so many usable ideas so far that I can put in place tomorrow. When a teacher walks out of a PD and has something to do tomorrow, that's a good day.
That's amazing.
And then we also had math interventionists. So basically all the different educator roles were represented, and people really felt it was extremely useful. We have multiplicative reasoning, which is targeting grades 3, 4, and 5. But anybody is welcome to attend because it helps to know what comes before you and after you as a teacher. We're doing that in June. We're going to do a second round in the summer of additive reasoning because some teachers would prefer to do this work in the summer as opposed to taking time out of the classroom during the school year. And then in the fall, after school starts, we're going to do fractions. And in the spring next school year, we're going to do ratios and proportions. Fractions would be like 5, 6, 7, and ratios and proportions would be middle school 6, 7, 8. Questions?
How many years worth of data do you have on that specific test? Did you look at 5 years, 7
On
years?
math tests?
Yeah.
Well, we could look back many years, but it's been not the same grade levels that have done it every year. So I think this year is the first year that all buildings did K6. So we would not be able to look back too far for say 1 and 2, because even though we have data from years back, they weren't taking the test. So what I can say is we're putting in place a data management system to make all this data stuff easier. And one of the things we did for sixth graders is reached all the way back to third grade. And imported it into the system
For those
for
individual
those
students.
sixth graders, yeah. And we stopped at third grade because these sixth graders, when they were kindergarten, first and second graders, they weren't participating in this test. So with the system that we're putting in place will let us pull in as much data as we have, and that's kind of the plan as we move forward.
So people keep talking about how students are behind as a result of the last 3 years. Do you see it? I mean, I see our scores and there's lots of areas where there's a gap. Do you think there's a relationship there, or have we historically been behind?
I think we've been behind for a while in this country. And I think COVID didn't help. I also don't think that data is necessarily going to tell the whole story, which is why we're doing things like OGAP. I think, my personal opinion, part of the reason we're behind is more about math identity than it is about students' ability to learn and teachers' ability to teach. However, those go hand in hand, because some of the teachers don't have the math identity that they wish they had because they were brought up like I was brought up, learning procedures.
Well, I get angry just looking at that because I didn't have access to that. And
Well, I mean, I think, okay, so get angry because you didn't have it, but we have it
Yes, we
now.
got it now.
And we need to make sure that we're taking advantage of it, and it's gonna take some time to
Yeah,
bring people along and put it together. One of the things we're trying to do is, it's a fallacy to think that if we're behind, that we can go faster with the kids that are behind and catch them up. That's not gonna work. So we have to get more focused and prioritize what's most important. All of it's important, but if you're behind, some of it's more important than others. And so that's what we're trying to highlight and focus on as we move forward.
I'd like to hear the wins when the teacher goes back and actually administers it, puts it together, puts it into motion. I'd like to hear those. That's what it would be interesting to hear.
Yeah. I agree.
Very high level, just points. That they actually work and what areas work.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can give you, I don't want to take too much more time, but I can give you one story that happened like 2 days after the training. So one of the big things is, it's gonna sound silly, but it works. One of the best ways for the youngest children to learn math is to have them count things. Like dump stuff on the table and watch them count it and figure out how they count it. Do they have a strategy to organize it? Are they sorting it by color? Pay attention to what they're doing. And so we did a lot of that during the 4 days of training. And a couple of days later, I was in Mount Holly, and one of the teachers who had attended was in her room, and there were piles of stuff everywhere. And kids were counting, and I was on my way out, and she called me in. So I went in and I was watching, and I sat down with this one little boy and girl, and they were just like, the girl was like, we've counted it 3 times and we keep getting these different numbers. I don't understand why. And you could tell they were trying to make piles of 10, but the piles of 10 were scattered and probably not all of them had 10. And the little boy was just exasperated. I'm like, well, what are you gonna do? And he goes, we're just gonna write down all the words.
Fingers crossed.
But the teacher was watching each of these groups do this, and she was very strategic about what things certain kids were counting. Like certain kids were counting all the same object, lining them up, because they had to do like that student who was like counting by ones, and she knew that. Other kids were getting like mixed bag and trying to figure out a way to sort it. So that's what I mean by you can like leave the kids where they are, but everybody's counting. But I can see, it won't be until the fall because the teachers are going to be done. But we can see if we can get some more examples of that. Plus, we'll have some multiplicative work in classrooms at that point too.
Is it appropriate for me to tell a very quick
Sure.
story? So
We
I
like
work-
stories.
I work with a fifth grader who can follow the algorithm, lower right, and add multi-digit numbers. And he has absolutely no idea what that number means. And so it was through OGAP and through giving him some items from the item bank that I was able to start to kind of look at what is he doing? What is he thinking? What's the next step for him? And so we are working on what's called subitizing and unitizing, to really get him to understand the magnitude of numbers. Like these were just numbers, they were just numbers on a page that had no context for him. So that's just another example
And that brings up a good point I probably should have emphasized when I was talking about that divisional algorithm that we all know. We need to be careful because kids who play school well and know that, but are like this student, we're not doing our job for them. If all they can do is mimic the algorithm that the teacher showed on the board, and they don't understand why it works, and they can't make sense of that version that the kid did that he went to 57 and backed up, then we haven't met that kid's needs. And the problem is, those kids are doing what you're asking them to do, if all you're doing is giving problems, and you don't know unless you do what Amy did, that there's something going on there that you still need to address.
Cool, thank you.
All right, what I want to know is, which way did you four do it?
I use my fingers.
I love it.
I actually do have a question for you though, if it's okay.
Sure.
Do you see the 3 Bs in your classrooms? The belonging, believed, and bravery? Like, can you see and feel that?
I mean, I definitely think some more than others, like it varies per class. Some where I definitely see all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I can think of specific teachers that definitely make it more of a point to like sit down with each individual kid and like, or just reach out if they see that they're struggling, and other teachers are just kind of like, whatever, figure it out. And obviously I prefer the ones that actually make it a point to reach out to their students and meet their needs in ways that they can.
It's a process and we're working towards it. I'm glad to hear that you're seeing it in some places. I would have been surprised to hear that, yes, this is absolutely happening.
It's perfect.
But I think we're certainly on the right path.
All right.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
Are students comfortable asking when they don't understand?
I think it varies.
Our
per
student, yeah, I mean, as every other answer, it varies per student, per teacher, per classmates. I feel like that's the biggest thing, is it depends who else is in the class. Yeah.
So things haven't changed much.
Thanks for being on the spot.
All right, any other questions? Comments? Okay,
Thank you, Julie.
Todd, you're up. Thank you, Julie.
So, I actually have a lot to talk about tonight. Where's the best place for me to go? Right here?
Podium.
Yeah. That's for graduation tomorrow. So the first thing, Deb had asked me a while back to put together a wants and needs, list for, Green Mountain Unified. I have 23 items on that list. Talked to the facilities directors. At this time, I think I have 4 prices. I've broken it all down. I won't get into it now because it's still a work in progress that you won't see for a few months. I mean, I've talked to 14 or 15 different vendors and working on estimates, and we're getting budgetary, I want to say that again, budgetary numbers where when I present it to you, you can look at it and it'll say a number. By the time that comes to you, those numbers will probably change, but we'll have somewhat of an idea on wants and needs for each school. So I'm working on that. Chester Andover, we have a little bit of a hiccup with the project, the summer project going on there. And we're dealing with some paperwork that's got to get through the state level. When I took this job, I never believed that I would be so involved with state and federal government agencies, and now I'm getting extremely well versed in a lot of different agencies, and we'll save the worst for the last. But we are hoping to have that sorted out soon, but we're working with the state. So I've learned this from dealing with the PFAS with Mount Holly, that we're at the mercy of the state, not anybody else. Catherine had mentioned the fire alarm at Chester Andover. It did come from the smoke from the wildfires in Canada. So they had a door and a window open, and the smoke set the fire alarm off. So we know that our systems are working extremely well. Called Matt right off. Matt was on the road, fire chief, and he was very helpful, and they cleared everything out and everything was fine, reset everything, and that went really, really well. touch on PCBs a little bit first, but not here. So Chester Andover residents for the elementary school are concerned about when are we gonna test the elementary school? They're on the docket for October to December. I don't expect that to happen. We're still dealing with the state. They were way behind when they came here. So the farther behind they're getting, it's a snowball effect for them. The even more behind they're getting, and the more positive tests they're getting will put them even farther behind, because one of the environmentalists groups that are doing the testing is also doing the remediations. So I would not put a lot of stock into them being there between October and December, but that's when they're on the list.
Sorry, Todd, did you just say a company that's doing the testing is also doing the remediation?
They're an environmentalist company that does the testing, is also gonna come back, because part of the remediation is testing to find the source. So they will,
Conflict there?
no, because the state is overseeing it. Yeah, the state's overseeing, all they're doing is running the test, so. The playground at Cavendish is moving forward. We really struggled with finding a general contractor to do the excavation work. We talked to a lot of people, a couple of them gave estimates, not even close to the budget that we had. We finally ended up talking to a contractor right in Cavendish, Scott Piper. I met with him and we cut some things out. He's gonna do a lot out of the goodness of his heart. And we're gonna move forward with that project. As of now, looks like it's gonna be within budget. We are looking for some community involvement to help put stuff together, because some people bowed out of that. So we are hoping to find some volunteers. They are actually reaching out to the Ludlow Rotary. So they've looked to another source for people and volunteers. So anybody that is going to come in August, I believe, we will put that out. I think, and I'm working with Jen Harper. So big shout out to Jen, because Jen and I have kind of jumped into this and we're running with us, and it's working really well. I really enjoy working with Jen. Move on to Zoom Mountain. I want to save the worst for the end. We had a student proposal a while back for, and I think it was in Mrs. Hamilton's class, about a bottled water filling station for out by the track. It was old school. We have a regular hose where when we were younger, we all drank out of a hose. And it was a hose made for drinking. They actually make one. It's a white hose. You buy it at the hardware store. That's what we had. And the kids thought that was a little too old school. So I applied for a grant. From Green Up Vermont. They had 2 left and we got one. So they're bringing one and we're gonna put that in until it's comfortable. We have an outdoor project. Actually, it's Randy's son, Connor, working on an Eagle Scout project. They're gonna come starting next week or so. We cleared off the backside of the school. Keith had proposed an outdoor classroom. It's not quite gonna be that extensive, but it's cleared. If we don't do anything with it now, the money we spent on clearing it last year, it'll grow up to a mess in no time. So they're coming, Connor and a group are coming in, Randy, and they're gonna do some excavation work. Whatever doesn't get accomplished with that, we're gonna work with them, and we're gonna come in and have some people come in, and we're gonna try to plant some grass, put a little gravel walkway through there, have a place for a gazebo. Maybe our wood shop can build us a gazebo where the staff or kids or whatever can go out there. It'll be usable to walk up behind the graduation platform and then down to the soccer fields or the track instead of walking around here. So to utilize an area out there that has been nothing but a mess, right? And it's a huge safety issue, right? When it was all grown up, I mean, somebody could have walked right up to the edge of the school, you'd never see them. So, and we're gonna remove some trees out there. So this is a good project. And hopefully I'm not stealing away from the students, but there was been some artwork from our students that have been hung in between on the first floor, all the way down to the gym. So if you get a chance, please walk down through there, because it's absolutely spectacular. All right, so now to PCBs. Unfortunately, this will dominate our conversations for the next foreseeable future. I spoke to a couple of you earlier. we have spent a lot of time and hours on the phone with Department of Health and Environmental Conservation and the state toxicologist and the AOE and just engineers and environmentalists. So where we stand right now is we tested high in numerous places, classrooms. We had some options that we had to pick from. We picked a third one that meant we needed to hire an environmentalist right off, which we did that day. Happened to be Harper's who did the testing. We did enlist, we were lucky, we enlisted, the University of Iowa came and we were one of the first ones to test for PCBs at Cavendish, and the University of Iowa came and did some testing. They are coming next week as well to do some additional testing. As it stands right now, if we were to go, and a staff member asked us the other day, what's the worst case scenario for us right now? The worst case scenario is that, except for this space here, we wouldn't be able to use the third floor. The good news is, been wandering around, and I'm 99% sure we can move the third floor to other spaces in the building. Convenient? No. Are people gonna, some staff and students have to, like, not, they won't be crammed, but it's gonna be different. You know, you may not have the same classroom, we may have to build some walls into places. It may cost us a little bit of money, and I'm talking little, not six figures. We're looking at building a couple walls and splitting some double classrooms that have been turned into single classrooms that, you know, we have 20 kids in it, may change that and be 15 kids on each side, right? We're not at the point of renting portable classrooms. We haven't even considered that. Just walking around, we're gonna move some things around and move some people around. Again, worst case scenario. We're hoping, and this is all a timing issue. So what we're looking at right now is the environmentalists will come in and they have to identify the source. So they're gonna look around again and decide, we think it's here. So we're gonna visualize and focus on testing this. May not be that, then they're gonna move to another one and then another one. And it depends how fast they can get the test results back. Now, that's just identifying where it's coming from. Then there'll be a remediation after that. As it stands now, the state has funding for us to take, and we're one of the first, we're not the first, but one of the first schools, so we're kind of high up on the list for that funding if the budget gets approved. So there's money there. It's not looking like right now it should cost us a lot of money, but we don't know. We don't know. And I'm sorry to say, and I will apologize for this, my wife knows this, I hate saying I don't know, but when it comes to PCBs, you're gonna hear me say a lot, I don't know. I'll try to find you the answers that you want, but when we have questions, if it's any questions regarding, is it healthy for our children? Are people at risk? You know, should we be in the building? Our answer should be, please, and it's no disrespect to anybody, get a hold of your state representative, call the Department of Health, email the DEC. Those are questions that they will answer for us. We should not be answering because we're not PCB specialists. The people that I'm dealing with are PCB. That's all they do for the Department of Health or the Department of Environmental Conservation. Now, the toxicologist came in and said, you know, they're very confident that the building is safe as of now. You know, and I'm confident that we will get this figured out and we will move our school into a good direction. Where is it gonna go? I don't know, but we will talk about this a lot for the foreseeable future.
As soon as we have new information.
Yep.
We'll make sure that that is shared with all of our families, with all of you, with all of our staff. And at the moment, the information that we shared at the June 7th meeting, that's the information that we have. And there'll be additional information that we don't have it yet.
Yeah. So we've done everything we can. There's some more details about, you know, air scrubbers that come in and there's a whole process. So I guess I might as well speak about this for a little bit. So in order for us to be eligible for the funding that the state has, we have to follow the plan from the state of Vermont. So their initial plan is they come in, they identify this. If they can identify it, they bring in these carbon filters, air scrubbers, they call them, from Canada. They're sitting on the shelf waiting to come in. I've just received something from the DEC about what size for the classrooms. I sent them some square footages, ceiling heights. But we can't do that until the environmentalist comes in and has a work plan approved by the DEC. So if we can order them, but we're on the hook for it. So Cheryl and I have already talked, be careful what we order, because we want to make sure it's within that work plan. Cassie, the girl at the DEC, she's very informative. She will let us know when all that is approved. The environmentalist is coming either Monday or Tuesday, so him and I can talk about a bunch of other things. So complicated, but it's nothing that we can't handle, and that we will move forward and we will figure this out. I have no doubt about it. But it's gonna be hard. We're gonna be in a tough spot here at high school for a while. That's just, but we'll get through it. Anybody got any questions?
Yeah, I'm already hearing from people who are understandably very concerned about this. And I think that communication and outreach and public forums and things like you did on the 7th are critically important to having everybody on the same page and everybody feeling confident.
Yeah.
I think it's really, really important to be transparent about this.
So what will happen, I've been attending these seminars and Zoom meetings for over a year now on PCBs, because they've been talking about this, the testing's coming, what's gonna happen. In every single meeting, the state has been very, very cooperative, that if we need them here, if I would have called them tonight, called this girl Cassie and said, I'm meeting with the school board, I'm not comfortable with talking about it, can you come and address them? She would have been here, or she'd have been on Zoom. They are very willing to meet with our community at any time. If we have a place, Steve, where we feel our community is getting very frustrated and not understanding what's going on, they will have another public forum and they will all come back. They've been very, very good about saying that they will do whatever they can.
I agree with Steve that we need to be transparent, but I was at that meeting and the auditorium was practically empty.
Yeah, I saw that video.
So, there's a big difference between offering the opportunity and people taking advantage of it. So I guess that it falls upon us to really try to communicate with people that we can plan these meetings, but if you want information, you need to come.
Right.
We did record it, and I know that there were a number of people who were unable to attend, and were, because they're recorded and then posted not only on the Okemo and Sapa TV, but also links on our website. We've had a lot of people make use of that.
Well, that's good to know.
So we want, go ahead.
Well, I just think we have to think about other ways to communicate as well. Not everybody comes to an open forum or watches a video. I think this is an opportunity to over communicate. I mean, this is probably too much of communication, but once a week or once every couple weeks, there's a PCB update that goes out to the community. I know as a human, I thought, oh, I'm going to come to this school today. I don't know anything about PCBs. And then I'm thinking, there's students going to this school every day. There's parents sending their kids. There's our employees coming to the school.
That's where you want.
So
really the
over communicating, what is it that we're doing every step of the way?
Yeah.
I think will go a long way
Yeah.
to letting people know that we're doing something.
Yeah.
It sounds like this is an appropriate thing for the outreach committee to be thinking about and to be implementing.
Yeah,
So
it does.
I don't disagree. I think we have to be very careful that, again, we are not
We're
PCB
not experts.
specialists, right? So I think we should be communicating. I 100% agree, but we have to be very careful about what we're saying, because we only know, you may only know what I'm telling you, and maybe I'm not communicating it 100% from what they're telling me, and then somebody tells somebody else and it gets watered down where we're not.
Right.
That's why the state says, call us and we're more than willing. And if we want to do that once every, I think we should have another one of those open forums before school starts.
Absolutely.
Have another one.
So I was just gonna
We'll be
say,
doing at least one, if not.
Yeah.
what if we put it as an agenda item and the first agenda item and had somebody on Zoom or from the state, and then, because, I mean, people are more apt to come on Zoom. And if you make it the very first item, they don't have to wait through the meeting to figure out when it's going to be. It can just be, here's your update.
Right. And I think announcing it ahead of time without giving details necessarily or alarming people or being
Yeah.
clear.
Right.
But at least letting them know, here's an opportunity to
It can just
participate
be-
and know what's going on.
PCB update.
Yep.
So that's something we can talk about.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Any other questions for Todd?
I have a question, and you can very clearly tell me this is answered on the video you haven't watched yet. Watch it. How do you know that the spaces that weren't tested are safe spaces?
So great question. So they place these sensors, and again, you can, if you go on the website, that'll show, there's a map that shows you where all of the test units were put, and they put them in groups. So if they put a sensor in the middle of the library here, they consider that room, and that room part of the group.
Okay.
So whatever, they just assumed that if it tested high here, which it tested but not over an action plan in the library, that those rooms tested the same way. So that's my big question, Kate, to the environmentalists, especially with our third floor. So my biggest concern is, what do we have to do so we can use this third floor and keep everybody healthy and safe, right? We want our students, our staff to be healthy and safe, but we still would like to use that floor and keep everything as normal as possible. So if one classroom on the top corner tested above the action plan and the group was the next 3 classrooms down, are you gonna come in and test those other 3 classrooms to actually see if those tested high? The answer was no, not yet. Their number 1 priority is to identify the source. So that's their number 1 priority, is to find out the source. So
And just to get at your concern, what we've seen with the pattern here is that on the 3rd floor, where it tested and it tested above that actionable level, as Todd said, all of the other ones in the group that they didn't test are considered to be at that level. They did then do a test in another room, and there's one room on the 3rd floor that tested lower. That room can be used, but none of the rooms around it, because they're all considered part of that other group. So the default is, the assumption is that it's a problem, not a default to assume that it's not.
Great, thank you.
And you'll hear, even from the state and from myself, this is complicated. It's not easy, and there's no, on our part, there's no, I mean, nobody knew in the late 60s and 70s, nobody knew, PCBs that were bad. They used them in a multitude of places, and, they stopped using them in 1979. I will share this with you because I shared it with LMH last night. Another school tested, they've got some PCB issues. We're not the only ones, and we're not going to be the only ones, because a lot of schools were built in the same time frame that ours was. They tested a little bit high. They identified the source. I think that source was in the window caulking, and the source was like astronomical numbers, but it hadn't omitted yet. So it depends on the age of it. It could crack, and it starts emitting the PCBs. Could be in flooring paint, could be, there's a whole pile of things that they put PCBs in. So there's a bunch of different things, but just because it didn't test high, doesn't mean that there's not something in that room that could eventually. We're not sure. Well, that's why I say it's complicated, and the water is going to get very muddy before it's over with. And they use that term a lot, but very muddy water. It's going to be, but it's going to work out. I'm fully confident that this is going to work out, and that we will come out on the other side of this in pretty good shape.
Sorry, I know you're not a PCB expert.
Yeah.
But is PCB removal like asbestos removal? Asbestos is friable and gets in the air. And, you have to wear special suits and stuff. Is it going to be like that?
So I asked this question again yesterday with the environmentalists. When they bring the air scrubbers in, they're carbon air scrubbers. They can pull the filters and send those out to be tested to see how much PCBs that they're actually bringing in and how well they're working in the area. And then obviously they're gonna test. But when they it's an example, let's say you find it in a stairwell, it's gonna be an abatement project. They will seal that off airtight, they will do something to put a portable air handler somewhere, and they'll just pump fresh air into that to no end and air scrub it while they're doing their remediation, whatever, I don't know what it is they're gonna do to get rid of it, depending on where it is.
Right.
And then they'll, again, wash everything down, it comes in dust, hangs out in dust and a multitude of other places, and and then they'll fix it. They're confident that they can make this, that they can make this right. I mean, we're not the first school, so this isn't something that they're experimenting on with our building. I did ask them, and I don't want to, I mean, this is a big deal, so I don't mind, taking up some time. I did ask, I called one of our guys at EEI because they were working on the Burlington High School project when that happened.
Right.
That's not a good comparison because everybody feels that Burlington wanted a new high school anyways. So they were pushing in a different direction, a little bit different than where we are. But, so I asked the question, what could have been done differently? What can we be doing here that they didn't do there? And when he told me what they were, the state didn't, there wasn't the funding available that there is now. So there are some options here, expensive, but if the state's gonna pay for it, then I'm gonna be looking to, because of some things that we could do to improve our, it's all about air exchanges an hour. It goes right back to the stuff that we talked about with
Exactly.
COVID. How much fresh air can you pull in, filter, and exhaust back out of your classrooms? So it's right back to the same ideas that we're talking about with COVID. So there are some ideas, putting some, new air handlers on the roof, especially for the third floor. New ducted systems in. I mean, if they're gonna pay for it, then I'm gonna push them to say, hey, look, if this was gonna help and there's money available, why are we not doing it? But that's neither here or now. It's conversation with the state. And, they'll make their recommendations like Warren said, and we'll follow. So,
When was Chester Andover built?
1956.
yeah, 56. So I don't want to say what they're going to test there, but the schools that have been built in the 50s have tested well. It's the schools from late 60s to the early 70s because they outlawed PCBs in 1979. So it's that age group of schools when Green Mountain was built, beginning in 69, put into service in 70 or 71, and that we're right in that time frame.
Schools built then that had major renovation projects during that time
Yeah.
period because it's in paint and caulking
Yeah.
and those materials.
And Ludlow Elementary was a great example. They had an addition on that building, and the old part, they had just one classroom tested very, very low, like not even an action, it was a very, very small number. But in the 70s, they had a small updated project went on there. It was very, 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 very low. It wasn't even actionable level. So it's that age group. Any more questions?
Good.
Anybody have any questions, please email me, PCB
Did
questions.
you answer a question from the audience?
Andy?
Well, I'd just like to say, I was at that meeting at the auditorium, and the thing that really stood out is they had $29 million put aside, but 17 million was going to Burlington.
Yeah,
That's a huge ratio for all the other schools that are left for the rest of that little money. I think the way the state works is very slow. They say they're going to get more money.
yeah.
But I think it would be good to notify your reps and your senators and say, this is a problem we have to address immediately and start working now to get more funding, because they're only at 24% of testing the schools. There's a lot of schools.
Several of our area reps were having.
And there's some federal funding they're talking about as well. Lauren and I have talked about that. They can talk about that. The federal level moves even slower than the state. So when they can talk about that, it can be 10 years before we see any funding from the federal government. So,
Yeah, that's my concern. It takes too long. If they can identify the source, we should be ready to act with fundings in place, hopefully.
and we've heard nothing from the DEC, the environmentalists we've hired. Nobody said anything about, we need this signed and saying that, you're gonna take care of whatever financially, nothing. So they've been really good about this, the testing, even now that we've tested high here, nobody said a word about us taking care of anything financial. So,
Speaking of financially, yes, who's up?
Okay, thank you,
So-
Tom.
Thank you, Doug.
You're welcome.
May is in your folders. We spent 79% of our budget, which is really good for this time of year. The big push is going to be this month where we have all the stipends for all the year-end events that are happening. Teachers that are leaving get paid out, as well as the summer up for our budget. So one of the things I do want to talk about was we're using a carryover. So we had $1 million carryover 2 years. But anyway, we split it up. So we had 500,000 last year, 500,000 this year. So when we have the budget, we have it as a revenue as a placeholder against our expenses, but we don't literally get money into that. It's part of our fund balance, our carryover. So when we, at the end of the year, when we have our revenues and expenses, even though I'm telling you we're in a deficit, we have not really spent our carryover money. So what happens at the end of the fiscal year, when we do a rollover, it nets our revenues and our expenses, and that balance goes against our fund balance. And then we have our carry forward for the years to come. So right now, you guys are looking good. I'm not worried about it. We do have our huge overages in heating oil, not unexpected, and food service are the two big things that are way more than what we had expected on that, but we've talked about that before. Any specific questions on the financial?
What would we be looking at for fuel or propane contract price? No.
I'm gonna look at that in August, and one of the things that I do want to bring up, you guys can think about it, we'll talk about it in August, is because Ludlow and Holly came in a little bit cheaper than you. We talked about voting on it at the supervisory union level, with that board picking up. So I'm gonna come back to you in August and ask you that question, and then I'll go out to bid and I'll bring it to either the TRSU meeting, that's the first Thursday of the month, or bring it to the regular meeting. That's all, whatever you decide to do.
And fuel oil is gonna get a little bit more competitive, Rick, because HB reached out the other day and said they're interested in bidding again. So the last one, we only had one. Irving was the only bid we had. HB is interested again, so.
All right, any financial questions? So we did get our multi-line coverage premium that we're gonna be, it's gonna be $308,740, which is about $27,000 higher. That's district-wide, so it's not like Green Mountain's taking the hit, so it's for everything. So that's our vehicles, workers' comp, errors and omissions, general liability, it's all of it. So that's up about 9.2%. It is what it is.
It is what it is, exactly.
Yeah, so it is high. So the other thing that I have for you is a little presentation on Act 127, which is the funding formula for FY25. So I know we've been a little bit longer, so it is down the road and be part of budget season. So if you want to see it now, or if you want to. Right, my eyes so I can see it. You're next. Stay away. Okay, so I will tell you that I stole this from Brad James from the Agency of Education, and he presented it to the business managers. And so some of the information is probably a little bit more than you really need, and I've cut out some of the information. But this is really to give you an idea of what changes when we start to talk about the FY25 budget. This is my life. We're currently giving you reports of this year. We're talking about next year, but we're budgeting for the year after. So I'm always in 3 years. Okay, so equalized pupil, the key takeaway on this slide would be how we're currently using it, which is our pupils, our weights for our pre-K, our elementary, and our primary. We also have the poverty level and English language learners, and those are the key things that we use for our weights right now. And then we're adding new categories, and the other big takeaway is that we're changing from our long-term weighted to we're
2 long-term weighted from our equalized pupil, which is a higher number. So when we talk about our average daily membership, that is the actual count of students, their FTE of the days that they attended in a 20-day period from the 11th day of school to the 30th. And they have to be, so we get a 1 FTE for each of the full 20 days that they spent. So if they were less, if someone only came 10 of those 20 days, we get a 0.5 for them. So long-term membership, I have something on my screen, so I can't read my slide here. Oops, I'm sorry. So the long-term weighted membership is the current and prior years, plus the state place students that they weight together. So
can I just, resident students means any student in the district, doesn't mean enrolled in like a school?
So it's not enrolled, so we still count like our tuition students that go other places, or our pre-K kids that are in different collaboratives around the district. We count them as our students.
What about homeschool students?
No. So these are the different weights that are going to be used. So for pre-K, we don't get a full FTE. Right now, our obligation is to 10 hours a week. So instead of putting a 0.46, they do a minus 0.54, just to make it complicated.
Sorry, Cheryl, I don't know what you mean by FTE.
Full-time equivalency.
Of student, the
Yes,
full-time
right.
equivalent of student. Okay, thank you.
So our K5, we get like a 1 weight. So this is all based on 1, and this is what we do to that 1. So 6-8, we get 1.36, and then 9-12, we get 1.39. Poverty for free and reduced lunch, they're changing where they get that number from. So now it's actually coming from our free reduced applications, which is going to be really important for us to be able to get that data. With free meals, that's challenging to get people to submit them, but this is another reason for them to do that. We get 1.03 per student that's on it. This population, this is a new one, and we get weights based on our population per square mile. And I'll show you that formula when we get in there. And then small schools and English language learners are the 2 that we have. This is just pretty much telling you what I just told you. So this number 2 is that it can be deceiving. They can work in concert with each other, or they can actually work against you with some of these things. And I'm not going to play that all out. So here's what we just did, but it's in a pie chart, and I'm going to add a chart here. I'm going to add to it. So across the top is the weights. And then this is our count. And so what we're going to look at now is if this formula was in place this year, this is how it would have impacted us. So this is our current enrollment. And then our poverty, which is our free and reduced applications, English language learners. And this is the population in square miles. So if you look at the bottom, the population is 5,149 and the square miles is 129. So we get the population per square miles 40. So that puts us in that second category. And then small schools. And I have to be honest, I'm not really quite sure how they calculate that. The information they gave us didn't have the background, so that I will come up with. So then we apply the weights to it, and so the bottom line there is that multiplying that top factor against the counts that we have along there. And so our long-term membership, had this been in place this year, would have been 1,147 students. And then this slide here is so if we converted that to this year, to our equalized pupil, it would have been 729, and we were at the 668. So that's an increase of 61 students that we would have had for our count. So our equalized pupil is what we divide into our general state support grant to get our cost per pupil, which divides by yield. To get our tax rate. A lot of information.
So this would help us.
This will help us, but bottom line, there's always a but. All right, so this is what we look like right now. This is what our ed spending is for FY '24. That's our equalized pupil, and our cost per equalized pupil divided by the yield, which went down $2, but for this purpose, we're leaving it alone. So we had $1.34. That was our pre-CLA tax rate. So now if we take our 729.44, that would give us a cost per pupil of 19,000 and would drop our tax rate.
Nice.
Okay,
However,
so
don't get so excited.
So the difference between the cost per pupil times the equalized pupil is a change in the education spending of 1.2 billion, which sounds pretty good. However, there's always a caveat, right? So that would give us to get back to the original tax rate. So now we're at $15 million instead of 13 million. Using that cost per pupil, we're back to our same cost, using the new equalized pupil, we're back to that cost per pupil to get to the same yield, to get back to the same tax rate. All right,
Because that's the intent.
because that's the intent.
It's like not that we will save money, but that we will be able to use the money we were using for more things.
Okay. And the whole purpose of this is to put money where it's needed.
Right.
So the higher poverty towns and distribute it. So there is a pool of money, and this is a chunk of money. So now if we take that and divide our long-term weighted average, in, which is where we'll be in 25, now our cost per pupil comes down to 13,192. But when the tax rate, when the cost per pupil is lower, then we still have to raise the same amount of taxes. So they're recommending that we drop that yield, which is the equivalent of $1 in your tax rate, to under $10,000, which would take you to $1.36. Still not terrible. But I went back to get us to $1.34 to keep that tax rate. If we dropped our change in ed spending to just over $1 million, that would keep our tax rate the same. But here's my concern with this, is that we've never sold our budget based on our tax rate.
Right, right.
We sell our budget based on the bottom line.
Yep.
And I think I calculated this and it was like over 7%. Adding $1 million isn't adding 7% to our budget. I mean, I think it's a nice thing that they did, but I don't think it's going to work the way they thought, which is not surprising. So there's advantaged districts and there's disadvantaged districts. Clearly, we're advantaged. We have more taxing capacity, which is what they wanted us to have. You know, in here, they're also saying there's winners and losers in this game. I think it's Burlington's going to lose $16 million. Oh, no, it's Champlain Valley's going to lose like $16 million, and Burlington's going to gain $16 million in taxing capacity. But it says that the disadvantaged, on that very last thing, the disadvantaged by the new weights are still required to maintain the same level of spending per pupil. So that means they're still going to, even though their taxing capacity has dropped, they still have to pay that. So their taxes are going to go ahead. And so this is not intended to pass a tax break along to the taxpayers. It's intended to put the money back in the school, but there's pitfalls in it, with it. So we're going to have to figure out how to navigate that, and hopefully more information will come out as we go through the budgeting process to try to figure this out. So there is a 5% cap on the what you can do from a prior year. So that's for those people that's actually good that are in the other situation. And if we increase our cost for people more than 10%, we have to go for it. And the yield is, that's to be determined. And hopefully we'll know something about that by the December 1st letter when that comes out. Brad James is leaving sometime this fall, which is very scary for us. He just has a whole lot of knowledge. So hopefully they find a replacement to do that. So this is I guess that's it. So this is a conversation that we will continue to have and continue to figure out as we go through the budgeting process.
All right.
So this is in the folder. People want to take some more time and go through it.
Any other questions for sure?
Quiz later.
Thank you. Quiz later. 29, the answer is 29.
Well, I was just thinking how my math education failed. I was watching that reading.
Her math was way more.
Yeah.
All right, student reports.
Well, it's great to see you all for the first time and last time in person for me and Greta. But right now I'd like to introduce our new representative that you didn't meet at the last meeting. This is Lexi Martin.
Hi.
She's currently a sophomore. After tomorrow will be a junior. Do you have anything you want to say? I'm excited to be here. And you all met Jack Clark. He'll be working with Lexi next year. Hopefully until they graduate. So yeah. Okay, she's gonna start us off.
So first I'm gonna talk about the YES program. The first YES program at Green Mountain started last Tuesday and ended today. And there was a variety of programs that students could choose from with priority given to juniors so that they could pick first. Seniors did not participate in the YES program and instead had senior trips and practice for graduation, which is tomorrow. There was some hesitation from the student body before the program started, but many students have enjoyed the YES program and now that they've had experienced it. And I think what was so great about the YES program is that it offered a variety of different activities to select from based on what like the students are interested in. However, one thing that could improve is the timing, and because I noticed that programs that went off campus like hiking and fishing, they were like planned accordingly. So they usually came back at 1:45 and that's when we were dismissed if you didn't have proficiencies to make up. But programs that were at school were sometimes done early, which left the students with like nothing to do for like 15, 20, maybe even 30 minutes. But I think that could be easily fixed for next year.
And as a senior who was exempt from the program, I think moving forward, there are definitely some things to be worked out, as Lexi said. Me and some other people, some other seniors that I talked to felt like we didn't have like closure with the year as we normally do. I always say the last day of school has a really specific energy. That is just like, it's a good energy. It's kind of a sad, sentimental energy. And that just wasn't there this year because it was an unofficial, really abrupt last day, but not really last day. And it was just weird. So I feel like I didn't really get an official last day to like wrap up the year, say goodbye to my teachers, because our last day was not their last day, and it was just weird. But so I don't really know what solutions could be posed to fix this. If we go forward with this program, but I guess it's just something to think about as we move forward.
Mrs. O'Neill is listening very closely.
Yes, she is. She's contemplating, yes.
Guys are doing great.
So about PCBs and student reaction to that, there hasn't been much concern from the student body. I think that's mostly because the schools decided to stay open until the end of the year. I've heard some worries about, but students are hopeful that it'll all be worked out over the summer, and there's a lot of faith put into the school, and they trust that it'll all get worked out. Kind of back to the YES program a little bit. Over the last 2 weeks, while we were not participating in the program, we had our own kind of senior events. One of our projects last week was to design and build a float to ride in the Alumni Day Parade. Our theme was like Lego Star Wars. I don't know. It was abstract, but it was a fun project build and a reason to come to the school and be together again before we actually graduate. So that took place on Saturday, was the parade, and I guess we were the first graduating class to build a float in many years, for who knows why. And yeah, I couldn't be there, I had to work, but I guess the people from the Chester Alumni Association were really happy that we participated, and it was fun.
It was wonderful to see.
It was.
Yeah. I wish I could have been there. But, and also last Friday night was our senior honors night here in the auditorium. There was so many scholarships and awards given out. I wish I knew the total number or total amount of money, but yeah, just a lot of scholarships that we applied for to support us in our future endeavors, whatever they are. And we do just want to extend our deepest thanks to the teachers in school and community for their endless support through our whole time here. And yeah, we saw one final time, well, but that despite our numbers being so small in this community, we are very strong when the time counts. So yeah, that was great.
So lastly, I'm sure many of you already know this, but I believe on June 2nd, the track and field, both the girls and boys teams won the state championship. So that was very exciting. It was a nice kickoff to the end of the year and ending on a positive note. So that was needed. I'm very excited. So congratulations to them. And as you already know, graduation is tomorrow at 7. Yeah, the seniors have been feeling a mix of emotions this past week. It's bittersweet for sure. And we're really looking forward to celebrating tomorrow with the community. And yeah, so rain or shine. And a quick thanks to Mr. Schroeder for coming to represent the board tomorrow. So
Not there yet, but I'll try. Make sure I show up.
so yeah, and we hope to see you all there.
Thanks.
Well, thank you very much, and thank the both of you for your years here with us. We've appreciated your reports over the years, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
And for Jack and Lexi, things are going to change a little next year, the way our student reps are. You're actually going to have a seat at the table.
Oh.
And we're going to look for your advice, and we want you to weigh in on things. And you won't be able to vote on issues, but we want to hear more from you. And so you're actually going to have a little name thing. You're going to have a seat to be here with us. And we would really like you to be more involved and be part of the board itself. So we look forward to that in the fall. So, all right, any questions for any of our student reps? All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Very
Have
much.
fun tomorrow night. It's gonna go by
Good
too
luck.
fast.
Can I say something real
Sure.
quick? So I want to thank our student reps. I talk to Marlena and Greta almost every day at school, at least to say hi. And they, from what they were as freshmen and sophomores to the young people that they are now is incredible. And I will miss seeing them. I call Greta Smiley because she's smiling all the time. Marlena, the King, is in her yearbook. So, to see them come here and do what they do and to hear them talk about stuff that happens at the board, they pay a lot of attention on what happens. So big shoes to fill for our upcoming student reps, but I think they'll do a great job.
Way to scare them off, Todd.
Pressure comes floating.
Thank you very much. Committee reports, River Valley.
Okay, so I did not go to the meeting because it was the same night as we had the PCB meeting, and I made the executive decision that it was more important to be informed about our school. I do have, give me 1 minute. Scott did send us a list of all the motions, so I won't bore you with all of them, but I can give you a general. Sorry. I can kind of give you a general information. So basically, most of it was for the funding of that board in terms of voting for chair people and new reps and all of that. And I think that that's kind of was like the bulk of what happened. Contract discussions and things like that. So I apologize for not being in two places at once.
It sounds like you made the right choice. Thank you. TRSU.
So I didn't bring my tablet with my notes. I'm just gonna go off the agenda. So there wasn't a whole lot of big changes. The actions we took, we accepted E14 communicable disease, A1 school board policies, C3 board meeting and public participation, C10 community engagement, C7 board member education, C8 board member and superintendent relations. The new business and actions taken, which I'm sure you all have heard, is the TRSU did accept the superintendent's resignation, and we negotiated for her to stay an additional year while we undergo the search for the new superintendent. The only restructuring that happened is I declined to be treasurer, and a new treasurer was set. And that was pretty much it for the actions. And most of the information that you receive in this meeting, we also received there.
Okay. Any questions for TRSU? All right, building restructuring. So the building restructuring committee really came about because of Lauren's vision to start looking into building usage and whatnot. So since Lauren is leaving, we've decided to disband isn't the right word. Table the committee until we have a new superintendent and see what their vision is and how they want to proceed. So that committee is not going to be meeting right now. When we do, if we do start it up again, I think I didn't grasp how scared Cavendish was or Andover. So I think it would be best that anybody that wants to be on that committee, be on that committee when it starts up again. So that everyone can feel better about that. My goal at that time, honestly, was just to try to brainstorm and then come back. But like I said, at this point, we're just gonna let it go for right now until we see what happens with the superintendent and then go from there. So there's not gonna be any changes and everybody can breathe. We're not gonna be starting the next school year, with anything different. Does that sound good? Any questions?
One of the things that the restructuring committee talked about briefly was a mandate that may be coming soon that will require all schools to have pre-K. But Cavendish has the capacity for that and willingness to do that, and certifications for that. It'd be great if we could keep our ears open and fill a couple of needs by including that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where that falls in restructuring, but as a consideration for the board and the district, it's something to keep our eyes on.
Do you know anything about where that's at?
The initial draft of the bill for it, which included a statement about pre-K 4, then was walked back, and the current iteration out there is around doing studies to see what would be the best approach. The general chatter around it is that within a couple of years, sooner rather than later, this is going to happen. And that there's motivation to wind up with, among most of the legislators, of making the requirement that all schools provide within the school a pre-K for 4-year-olds. But it's going to be a while.
Right, just within the Cavendish area, there's a need for it. Currently, there's a.
So would that be something we'd be looking at when we're looking at the budget? When we're setting the next budget, like, because we're doing the budget 2 years out or 3 years out. So is that something we need to start looking at?
If that's something you want to consider.
something to talk
There's,
about?
there's been some discussion with the possibility of one of the preschools that serves a number of students in Cavendish needing, that may need to close because of some staffing issues. So there's been discussion about whether it would be possible to look at putting it into one or more of our schools sooner. And it would certainly, you know, one of the discussions we've had is that trying to do that when you have a budget for it is a real challenge. So talking in our next budget conversations about what would it cost and are we prepared for making, you know, making that change to our structure and being ahead of the curve for it.
So that might be good for our retreat and one of the
Yes.
discussions.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Preschools have different roles,
Right,
so there's a lot to do. It's not.
right. It's not that simple.
When you're done, there's no.
No,
Yeah.
fencing and certifications is one of the two big things, and that can be easily done.
Okay, new business. Appoint a board vacancy. So we received 2 letters of interest for our Cavendish board vacancy. And I made everybody a copy.
What, no, in general, what we've done is that we offer people an opportunity to tell us a little bit about themselves and that we are not asking.
Okay. So I'll give you a couple minutes. You can read through the letters and then we'll let them introduce themselves to us. We are not asking questions. And then we'll do a paper ballot and we'll go from there. Will you share Megan Jones and Lisa Sanders. Megan, no H.
You might like to wait until I speak.
Oh, you gave me 2. Don't let me go there twice.
Yeah.
Everybody can read.
You get one. Of course.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, Megan?
Hi, everybody. So I guess a little bit about myself, in addition to what's in the letter, is just I've been part of this community for almost 12 years now. Historically, I've worked outside of the district, and at this point in time, I'd really like to focus on being part of my home community and working more on focusing on my children and kind of what's going on locally. And I'm at a point in my career where I've actually stepped away from social work to focus on my family. And this kind of seemed like a natural step in the right direction as my kids sort of get into the education system a little bit more. My son's going into kindergarten next year. My daughter will be in 2nd grade. So I'm really excited for their journey and just hopeful that I might be able to be part of it through the school year.
Awesome, thank you. Lisa?
Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Sanders, and there were 3 things that came to mind when I thought about telling you a little more about myself. The first is my mom was a public school teacher for about 35 years in Arkansas. She taught junior high English and civics, and she still claims that teaching civics was an accident, but when I told her I was up for doing this, her response was, good, it's about time. Second is that I do have 2 children in Cavendish, and are just me and my family are really committed to the community and the school system. My partner is the 3-4 basketball, baseball, and soccer coach. So the game tonight actually got canceled without them knowing it, but that meant they got to have McDonald's instead. So that was something. The third is I'm a professor at UMass, and my PhD is in early childhood brain development. So although I think there is a gigantic gap often between research on learning and education and brain development and the actual practice of it, I have some experience in drawing a connection between those two. And in my letter, I did mention that I would be doing this as only until there is a point for an election. It would be my intention to run for the board at that time of election. I just wanted to be clear in the letter that I wasn't wanting to, take the position of someone who was otherwise elected. I think that's who should be on the board.
That's how it happens anyway. You get, this position is filled until the next election, and then it's open again.
Perfect.
All right. Yep.
Pass it down.
Yeah, you can keep them, shut them, you can do whatever you'd like.
See if I can read people's names.
These came from the last meeting. I did not attend the last meeting, so. Okay.
We can never.
Yes, on the, meetings that young one.
She did that.
And we have a tie.
Did you say we have a tie?
Yeah.
So what do we do in the case of a tie?
Very well.
Table it till we get expert opinion on what we do for a tie?
What you do for a tie is you vote it again and decide whether and see whether there is a change in anybody's votes, knowing that there's a tie. And then you can decide that you're going to wait and run the run the question again at another meeting. But there is no how you break a tie information for something like this.
Okay. So you're gonna pass out paper again?
Yeah. It cuts them off.
So
I'm sorry.
It doesn't go back to, it doesn't go back to Cavendish, like to the residents.
Well, what the way, the statute requirement is that the school board makes the appointment in consultation with the select board. If you do this again and you have another vote that is a tie, my suggestion would be that even though Cavendish Select Board said that they were not weighing in on it, that they might like to weigh in.
Okay. So if the sun's gonna tie as well, then we'll go back to them and.
It's a problem when you have an 11-member board, so that you don't have ties. But at the moment, you only have 10 members, so.
All this math tonight.
I know, right? Thank you.
I think that was the first round.
I wrote out there, okay. The answer's still 29.
It is, it was fantastic because I actually got it, okay.
the only background I can do. But there was one, I still didn't figure out how that bottom one, like, the thought process.
Yeah.
Like going
I have
ahead and then back, I didn't get that.
Oh, you did? Okay, well, I'll collect them and go back the other way.
Anybody mind if I just go use the one?
I would have
I won't do the card, I'm like.
Did you guys pass yours? Yeah, we did. While we're waiting, Adrian said she wasn't at the policy committee, so I'm gonna rely on you as we do like first reads and stuff. If there's any like changes that we need to be aware of, if it's just basically the same policy all over.
A lot of the policies, we did not make any changes to.
So I think that will move things along. If you can just like, as we go to each one, just tell us.
So you are all very sure about who you want to do.
All right, so do you want me to, do you want to?
I think we can, and I know at least, yeah, I think both of you asked the select board at some point or submitted.
I have not been able to connect.
Okay.
Yeah, I handed a letter to the Cavendish clerk, so yeah, I think it got there.
So, yeah, I can contact them and ask them if they would like to have Megan and Lisa come and speak to them and whether they would like to give us an opinion.
Okay. And then we have to vote again.
If their opinion is that they're not going to make a recommendation, it remains up to this board to make a decision.
Okay.
And the
Thank
select
you.
board solicit, input from the town at all?
If you want to, I would be a little cautious about the way in which you go about doing.
I'm not doing anything less than the select board would be willing to do that so that, you know, they can make an informed decision on their ends.
But see, they don't.
They don't make the
decision.
decision.
That's, they can make,
Informed
right, recommendation.
recommendation.
Well, thank you both for being here. Sure. And whoever doesn't get it, I hope you'll run in March. It's great, because when I was first on the board, I think we had one Cavendish rep. It's, were years when we didn't have a full board because there wasn't anyone. So this is great. Okay, Lois, I'm going to lean on you a lot to get through these policies. So, first one is D1, personal recruitment, selection, appointment, and background checks. These are all first reads, so there's really not a lot.
That's fine. If iPad is not functioning, I need to.
I think we just need to know, like, if you guys make changes or if you.
We did not.
For D1.
It's best my recollection.
Okay.
I didn't,
I mean, it's a first read, so it's
yeah,
not.
I didn't bring my policy commit, my
I can see, do you want me to
policy.
pull up the meeting minutes?
That
with
would
the
be,
policy?
that would be helpful.
Oh, you got it? Hey, we've got the.
Oh, perfect.
The committee suggested changing sentencing number 1 from applicants the superintendent is prepared to recommend for employment will be expected to provide to when the superintendent is prepared to recommend an applicant for employment, they will be expected to provide. So just a change in syntax there.
Okay.
They also discussed that the clause about the unfavorable background information doesn't automatically bar somebody from employment. And some examples were given.
Do you know what that was about?
Yeah.
Lois?
Do you?
I feel like unfavorable.
I don't know that I like that.
I don't see it.
It's, I do.
Oh, was it a?
So for example, let's say your applicant, when they were 19 years old, got a DUI and now they're more advanced in years, that wouldn't necessarily preclude them from applying for a job and getting hired for a job, except maybe the bus driver. But that doesn't necessarily, that's
I
what
don't know, we need.
some examples that were given.
Was there any discussion about there being discretion? Like the superintendent having discretion? I mean, I don't like the idea of it just being that vague, like. You know, what was the discussion surrounding that? It seems exceptionally vague.
I'm sorry, I don't recall.
Do you recall those?
No, I'm totally drawing. And I'm looking at this and it's not even looking. What's the number? Is it D1?
D1. It's number 5.
Okay, provided. Number 5 on the first page.
Yeah. Unfavorable background check information is not an automatic bar to employment, nor is a background check with no unfavorable information a guarantee of employment.
Oh, I don't have the first page, that's my problem.
I don't have any. It's hard to make that sort of decision. It just seems like a worthless.
Yeah, like why is it there?
They counteract each other entirely.
I don't have the third, I don't have the third page, so that's giving me a problem.
The third page, there's a third page.
Well,
It says two.
it says 2 of 3, so on
It's
page,
number 5 on page 2 of 3.
on page 5, providing a safe learning environment for students is a primary consideration of the district implementing the systems. Oh, I see it, okay, I'm in favorable.
I don't.
Yeah, I could, it looks to me as though, no, there is.
There is?
Yeah,
Just the
because the last
references.
page is just the.
Okay,
It's,
Okay.
Well, we also don't appear to have it in the electronic packet, so
well, I'm thinking, I mean, I understand why it's here because of things like past things that are really no longer relevant. And I also would understand why why no unfavorable information is a guarantee of employment. So I don't see anything wrong with that paragraph, but if you have information that you want me to bring to the policy committee, I will certainly do that.
I'll be there next month, too.
So
Anything else for this one?
does anybody want anything to be changed?
I think it's just a little vague, or there needs to be some, maybe mention of some discretion. I don't know, it seems.
Okay, we'll think about it until the next policy meeting, and then
Okay,
okay.
D2, professional development. Amber, any changes on that one?
The language in the first paragraph about the Two Rivers Supervisory Union and its member districts. The principles of professional development are not necessarily being conducted only by educators. However, the PD is being developed by and directed by professional educators.
There was no change. That was just discussion
That was
about
just discussion.
item number 6, which has stayed the same.
Okay. Any questions on D2?
I remember that.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
D10.
D10, public complaints about personnel.
So this is really just defines the steps that one should take when making complaints. First to the individual, then to that individual supervisor, then to the supervisor above that individual. And that's something we've discussed over time as being the right way to do it. So
this one hasn't been changed.
we didn't make any changes except for we kind of put our own language in that first two sentences
Mhm.
to, so that they're all
Yeah.
similar.
There were two other changes.
Okay.
So Ms. Spearman suggested adding a statement in the first paragraph about anonymous complaints will not be considered.
Right.
And then also specifically naming what the anti-discrimination policy is, title is in that section.
Oh, okay.
So
That wasn't added.
That was added.
it's so notice of non-discrimination policy C6.
Where was the anonymous complaint?
To the first
To the
sentence.
first sentence.
Or the first paragraph. It's the last thing in the first paragraph. Anonymous complaints will not be considered. You want to see?
Right, in public complaints.
Right. The first paragraph, the last sentence.
In other words, if you have a complaint, you need to say who you know, make the complaint with, not anonymously.
Okay, that is not in the one that was sent out for us to
Public.
do first read on.
On D10, it was not in the first paragraph.
Okay.
Right, so the one that we read is
Yeah.
different than the
Oh,
one
so
that
you
you
may
have
have,
right
you may
here.
have read the original, not the one that we.
The thing that is on I just pulled this up from the calendar.
We got, I
There
did
it
three
is.
different emails. It was the first one that was sent has these policies in it.
But
I was looking at the
Lauren-
other one.
Oh, you were looking at the other one.
No, no,
Lauren
no,
just
I
pulled
was-
it up and it's on.
I'm
This
looking at the one that was sent by Kelly in our electronic packet. That's what I just.
And what do you have?
I just went through the calendar, which is here, which is.
Isn't that what they sent us?
That's what I assumed you're saying. I don't, when you say that sent to you, isn't this what is sent to you?
Yeah.
So I just opened it up. There it is.
Well, I just opened it up and it's different, so.
Let me see your page. No. Like, where do you?
Oh, I am in the calendar invite that Kelly sent us all for the board
That's what
meeting.
she's in. That's why I'm wondering if they're different.
Okay.
They shouldn't be.
What? that
Policy
one
D10.
Is D10.
The district places trust in its employees and desires to support their actions in such a manner that employees are free from unnecessary spiteful. The district places trust in its employees and desires to support their actions in such a manner that employees are free from unnecessary, spiteful, or unjustified criticism or complaints. That's the first paragraph.
Okay, maybe we've got to check with Kelly to make sure that we all have the same thing.
I didn't get D10 at all.
It's in the packet, like
Yeah, no, I have the.
the calendar one.
All of what I can check is this invitation that has them on it and it's worded exactly that way. Well, she may have updated it, but this should be the most recent.
Well, so we got another invite on June 5th, but that one is not included. And then we got another one on,
Mine was from Tuesday and I have totally different.
So the calendar is correct.
13th, but it's
What
not
do you mean
on
the calendar is
13th
correct?
either.
The calendar invite, the early one,
So if I go to my
It's come through
calendar
differently.
and click on today, click on the GMUSD, it comes up and it's correct. It's the right wording.
yeah, it's the
But
correct
finding
word.
it, and that's because that's what Lauren's pulling.
Wrong, yep.
I'm looking back to the one in my email. There's 3 different ones in my email.
Because there are updates to it.
But I don't
Because when
see
we're
D10
doing
as the most
in
updated
order to
one.
do second reads, you have to post it 10 days before, which means that an invite goes out 10 days before with the second reads on it, which may or may not have, because most of the time we haven't had our agenda meeting 10 days before. So it goes out as a shell that has the agenda with those second reads on it, and then there are updates that are
But
made.
my
to it.
most updated one doesn't have D10 in it.
I don't know what to tell you, given
Well, I
that
don't know what to
there's,
tell you either.
given that there's,
have
and
different things.
the most recent one I have that includes this warned group has it on it.
Doesn't it update automatically? Like when she makes changes on that, doesn't it make changes on what we open?
It
Because
should.
it's a Google Doc,
Yeah.
so it should automatically make the changes. I don't know. We will look into
I
that.
don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. Okay. So, back to D10. So are we good with this for the moment? It is still a first read.
That's right.
Okay. D12. Employees
Is there information going back? Is there a concern about that language?
Was there concern about that
Anybody
language?
want something to be changed?
Do we have concern about the anonymous complaints will not be considered? No. Okay. D12. Harassment.
I do think we should, I mean, having just read that one, I think that I have concerns about anonymous complaints and would like the committee to consider that. I think that the policy of you have to do this and then this and then this, and not accepting anonymous complaints impacts accessibility. So I would love to see at least a line that says, you know, we will be flexible to the needs of the community. So I've heard from families that it is burdensome to go from a staff person themselves to their supervisor to finally get to the superintendent to have action taken. And I think some flexibility would be helpful.
Anybody who calls and asks to speak with me speaks with me. I always hear from, regardless of whether they've gone through these steps or not, I always talk with them and ask them to go back to, if they have not spoken to the people at the earlier levels, because otherwise what's going to happen is I'm going to go back and then they're going to ask me, but what really happened and what did somebody say? And then we're playing a game of telephone with it. But we don't enforce this with you're calling me and you haven't talked to the principal yet, so I'm not going to hear anything.
It doesn't, it says the complainant shall be encouraged. That doesn't mean that the complainant can't pick up the phone and talk to anybody on their list. So I don't think this denies that possibility to anybody because of the way it's written. Because the first sentence in resolving complaints says the complainant shall be encouraged first, but doesn't say that that's the only way they can do it.
And what is the rationale for not allowing anonymous complaints?
Because if there is a complaint if somebody sends something in the mail, because the only way at this point to receive an anonymous complaint would be like that. So if somebody sends something in the mail that says so-and-so did such and such, how am I investigating that?
I see.
What if it's super egregious?
If somebody sends an email that says, there was a teacher who I don't even know what to say in response to it. How am I, but again, egregious or not, how am I investigating that? If all it says is somebody did this terrible thing. So what I can do with that is I had a report from someone that says you did a terrible thing.
I did not.
Well, so for example, if I got an anonymous report that said this teacher sexually abused a student, I would probably call DCF. That is an action that I would take, or I would call the police, that I got an anonymous report and I would have the experts of investigation so I would take an action. And I'm just curious if we would take an action or if it would be we just disregard it.
I would say that depending on what information was included in that email or in that letter, we might well say, I have sufficient evidence to feel that somebody is threatened, and therefore I'm going to call DCF. I'm very reluctant to say that we are going to go through a chain of events that wind up with something in front of the board in which we're saying that I had somebody report that something happened. I can't investigate it because I have no other information about it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't come to the board, basically. Okay. I see both points. And I think yours is, and Kate, I have to believe that if they got that sort of information, they wouldn't just
I believe that too.
sit on it.
I mean, Kate, do you have a recommendation for a way that we can?
No, I feel satisfied by what Lauren just said and your comment about encouraging and that people take the calls anyway. That's
Okay.
Okay. D12, harassment of employees, prevention of.
And go through together. Just some updates. Some updates. So nothing was.
I think that, didn't we discuss that, to make some kind of a statement that the coordinators would be, updated every year so that it doesn't have to come back to the board every year as a change? I don't remember what the language was with that.
Policies being set up as an addendum that could be updated as necessary without requisite policy
Right, right.
reapproval. Yeah. And that's what this
Which
is.
one?
D12.
And this is a required policy from the state and we made no changes.
Okay. Except
This
for
was
the.
just except about the addendum.
Which
so
is a
that
good
we
idea.
didn't have to change it every year.
Any questions on that one? Okay, D18, social networking, media and media personnel sites employee use. Yeah. Discussion about the boundaries of social networking between the staff and students. Committee discussed other means of setting up meetings and other events with clubs and student events. There was discussion about emphasizing the policy with new teacher orientation. So no changes were made to the actual policy. Or is this a new one? No, this is an old one. It was adopted in 2018. So no changes were made. Well, it says Ms. Perla approved sending the policy to the board for approval with the changes noted. So I don't know what wording
That
was
is
changed.
probably an error on my part with a whole lot of copy pasting going on. in it.
Okay, okay. All right.
I'll make note of that, and correct that for the minute.
Thank you. Stipend policy, E10.
I can speak to that one.
Okay.
So with the federal grant money that we have, we're required to have a policy if we decide to give our employees stipends. It's very generic, it just says we have to have one, so.
So we
now
create
one.
one.
Okay.
We made one.
Did you change the name? It says
It needs to be assigned a number.
We assigned it E10.
E10.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, it's just not-
Changing the
And we
title
call
from
it
stipends,
staff
staff stipends, which is happened.
Yep.
Does this policy then require you to give stipends anytime somebody goes above and beyond?
No,
their
it's at the
normal
sole
needs?
discretion of the superintendent.
Thank you.
Okay, no period after.
Thank you. I was just gonna
stipend.
say, can we get rid of the period after stipend? That was actually noted in there too, the extra period.
Oh, I guess that wasn't done. It's still there.
There are two of them, one after its member school period.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I see that one too.
We'll make all of those go.
Okay. F3, fire and emergency preparedness drills. This is a required policy, so I'm assuming it is state worded.
Yes, it is.
These are
And
new.
these are the ones that are supposed to be in place in August.
Okay. So this really isn't something to comment on because it's state ordered, right?
Well, you can, it is ordered, but it is not, when all of the policies that are required, you can decide that we're going to say Two Rivers Supervisory Union School Districts, and you could put in the names of them. I mean, you can play
Right,
around with the
yeah.
language a little, but you can't do anything substantive.
Okay. So the policy committee was good with this? Yes?
Our biggest discussion, I think, was
Gave it a
about the
number.
numbers.
Oh, they gave it a number. Okay, so it is F3. And the same with F4. They gave it a number.
Right.
Changed it to Two Rivers Union. Yep, member districts. Yep, there's discussion about section 2A and each school having a unique building. That means you have a structure left unlocked for various purposes. If that doesn't.
Right, so we do need to hear from this group. This is a question for Todd. We talked about this at Ludlow Mount Holly last night, whether each district had any outdoor structure that for any reason, recreational purposes or otherwise, needed to remain unlocked That's what this is for. If we don't have things that remain unlocked, we don't need that paragraph. Ludlow doesn't have anything, so they wouldn't include it. That's a question here, and Todd is shaking his head. So there are no.
So there's nothing.
Nothing.
So we can cut, we can take out.
So we can take out A.
A.
Okay,
Okay.
your minutes need to be changed, Amber. There's no 2A, it's a 1A. Thank you. You're welcome.
And we're removing.
And we're
A
taking A
altogether.
out altogether. Okay.
Now, the policy committee will not meet again before this comes to this
Second
board,
reading.
which hopefully will happen in a brief moment of our July 20th retreat,
Okay.
so that this can be approved prior to.
Because it needs to be.
It's supposed to be in place by August 1st.
Okay.
Okay.
So to sort of need this board to say that they are.
First of August, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, off policies for a minute and on to legal representation for PCB litigation. I authorized Lauren to sign my name. Is that what it was?
I was
Sign our
signing my
name?
name
You signed your name?
on your behalf.
On my behalf.
So I emailed this
Yes.
around to everyone. And because the people involved in it were, and I appreciated them saying that, you're not, if you decide you don't want to move forwards with it, I notified them and you don't move forwards with it. But they were looking for a kind of a district head count of how many people were actually going to be moving forwards with it. So what you see from this is the Lynn Blackman and Manitsky law firm that is includes Pietro Lynn and Heather Lynn, who are our VISBIT representatives. And that firm is well known for education work throughout the state. They represent many, if not most, of the school districts. Brought this, they were contacted and are working with these other two firms from outside of Vermont about the potential for what amounts to a class action lawsuit against the people who manufacture PCBs. So at this point, if we were going to go into details about all of this and possibilities of lawsuit, we'd be in executive session with the attorney talking to us. At this stage, what this does is say, we like, and most of the others, 55 school districts, not all of them, but most of them have also signed on for this, are saying, let's see what happens with this. And if they move forwards with a action against those manufacturers, that we would be part of that action. We're under no financial obligations. It's a contingency fee setup, which means that all of the attorney fees are paid out of the settlement. And there's no financial obligation at any point with any of this from us. The statement in here about termination means that the districts will be responsible for fees or costs incurred based on the circumstances. However, it also says in here that you're only responsible for fees if there's a settlement. So there's no ability to collect fees. There's no financial obligation or responsibility that is put on the district in the way of most contingency fee lawsuits.
So then we're joining a class action suit, basically.
Correct.
If it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is saying that we are agreeing in principle at this point to move forwards with them. If they decide that they're actually going to move forwards with it, there will likely be additional paperwork.
So it's a win-win for us. Costs us nothing and could get us money.
Lauren, do you have a sense of how much staff time would need to go into a class action lawsuit? Like your
From us?
time, Todd's time, principal's time?
In all likelihood, not a whole lot. What they're going to, I mean, there will be some. What they will want is copies of all of, and they've already asked for copies of the reports that we've received, which are all public reports. They ask us for it. They could go get them themselves from those websites. So if there were anything at any point that was too burdensome, it really is all public records. But, so, if this goes forwards, there will probably be some needing to talk to the people who were involved in it. I would not anticipate that being particularly onerous, because it's not intended to create they really are going to do this based on, here's the report and here's how much it costs. And all of that is not records we're creating, it's records the state is creating.
Thank you. So does anyone have an issue with us moving forward at this point?
I just have a question. I think there's a competing class action lawsuit with schools from Maryland and New Jersey and a couple other states against Monsanto. I'm wondering if that complements this. Is this in any way interlock with that?
It may, what frequently happens, I wouldn't say usually, but what frequently happens when these kinds of things get started is that there will be multiple people in multiple places pulling it together. And if they all start to actually move forwards, those frequently all get joined. But I'm not aware at this point of other ones. I am aware that there has been some discussion at the state level about the state deciding to move forwards with it. If that occurs, they will undoubtedly be in conversation with this group. It's also preliminary that those specific questions are sort of hard to answer. We have not locked, we say we want to move forwards with it. It also says we can decide at some point, if we see something that looks like a better offer,
Right.
we can decide that we want to exit from that.
So for example, Burlington High School is not part of the class action, so they're working independently and they're suing against Monsanto. I don't know how they're doing, but I don't know whether that makes more sense. That's a question to talk to our council about. In any event, I just want to get a settlement. If the settlement, the current class action is being distributed among 200 schools, it might not be the situation for us.
And that may well be the case, and that all this does at this point is says, yeah, we're interested in seeing what happens.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
And we can, if you want more detailed answers than I can provide, the Pietro Lynn is likely to come because we had, there's an attorney on the LMH board, so attorneys always want more details. So it's likely to come and speak to them to answer some of those more specific questions. I can ask him to come and speak at our August meeting to answer any additional questions people have.
That'd be great.
And we would set that up as an executive session that shouldn't last more than 15 minutes.
I'm
we
sure
can
there'll be
ask.
other considerations too.
Yeah.
Okay. E, approval of the FY24 tax anticipation note. Carol, I'm guessing that's you.
That is me. So this year I've put out for 1.35 for Green Mountain Unified for this Kate's been in before. For the new people, it's just kind of a bridge loan until we can start collecting taxes from the town because of the one that town collects it when we get it. And so each year we ask for a loan. The interest rate is 4.24 this year, which is 2% higher, a little more than 2% higher than it was last year. That's surprising. So what I would be looking for is an approval and as well as authorization for Deb to sign on behalf of the board. And gotta find a document I need to share. So the attorney of the bank asked that the board see
Like, what's
this
going on?
one. This document, so you're not gonna be able to read it, it's several pages long, 8 pages long. So this is what Deb would be signing on behalf of the board. It is in the folder, so people can go back and read it easier than it is now.
And this is pretty standard. We do it every year.
We do it every year. The thing I also need to know is who is the clerk of this board, because they need to sign as well. It is Lois. Okay. Is anybody leaving town in the next 2 weeks?
Yeah. I wish.
Anybody leaving town the next, yeah.
No, the 2 people that need to sign. You can go to me.
No.
So that's the motion I just looking for. Authorize Deb to sign on behalf of the board.
Do I have a motion?
Motion made.
Yeah,
Scott's made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Katie? Sorry, her hand went up.
that's fine.
Is there any discussion?
So just so I understand.
Hold on. Yes.
It was, did you say 1.35 million?
Yes.
So this is like an advance on
Taxes that are coming in.
taxes.
So it's a
that-
line
the
of
already
credit.
approved budget.
Right, it's a line of credit in the event we have cash flow issues while we're waiting for the town to pay the taxes.
Based on a budget that has already been approved.
Correct, yes.
by the tax.
And we only borrow, and we try not to do this, we beg, borrow, and steal to get around not having to do this. We only pay interest on what we use.
Yeah.
So if we don't end up having to use any, we don't have to.
Right.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You have your authorization.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Okay, Lauren, CTES part-time art position hire.
We had, as I said in my report, which feels like that was about 8 hours ago, our part-time art teacher at Cavendish found a full-time job, which is wonderful for her and sad for us. We advertised for the position at the beginning of May. We had a single applicant who was a new graduate. The position was offered to that person who turned it. We kept the ad up and put it forward again and have had no other applicants until Julie Kelly, who is currently the part-time PE teacher. She's has a certification as a social studies teacher and has also worked with students as a para before as well. But she came to fill the need of a PE teacher and is working on a provisional license for that. She has said that she is willing to do the 1-year emergency certification, which would allow her to spend an extra day being, so she becomes a 0.6 person rather than a 0.4 person to teach art to students. She knows the students, she works with them, and I know and the AOU just notified me today in response to my question about whether we could have someone on a provisional license in one area, do an emergency certification in another. And the answer was yes. So rather than waiting another month, I thought we'd move this forwards. She's worked with us for a while. She just, it's hard to say too many good things about Julie. She's fantastic. But I would read you her cover letter, which is, I'm writing to apply for the position of art teacher at Cavendish Town Elementary School. The application would require an emergency waiver for a 1-year position. I would be uniquely qualified to work with the CTES students, having served as their physical education and health teacher for the past year. I know it's difficult to find qualified teachers for part-time unified arts position. It would work well for me and the school to have one teacher for 2 of those positions, bringing me to a total of 0.6. I would only be interested in 1 day a week, have suggested arrangements for PE and health that would serve the needs of the students, classroom teachers, and the physical education program. I stepped up when asked to apply for the PE position last year, created a successful standards-based PE program and movement program for students with physical and developmental challenges. And that is so true. I've taken 9 graduate credits this year while teaching to add a PE endorsement to my teaching license. I stepped up when the school had no guidance counselor at the beginning of this year and worked with teachers to select topics relevant to our students. And now I'm stepping up to apply for the art position. I'll bring the same dedication, creativity, organization to the art program that I brought to my other roles at Cavendish. High school studies, physical education, and art. Thank goodness for a quality liberal arts education. I majored in international and comparative political studies and minored in math. Students at Hamilton College were required to take a well-rounded selection of courses. I taken independent study art in high school, thoroughly enjoyed it. In college, I added courses in drawing, painting, and textile arts. I've taken a number of courses in nature journaling as an adult. I've continued my creative work with textile arts, painting, nature journaling, interior decorating, and costume design. I've submitted to Brenda Shear, our teacher at Chester, I've substituted for Brenda Shear, art teacher at Chester Andover, and taken her classes as a paraeducator in kindergarten and third grade classes. While I would be applying for the position of art teacher under an emergency waiver, I have the ability, knowledge, and work ethic to bring a joy of art and creativity, as well as age-appropriate art concepts and content to the community. And all of that is just so true. It's such a win. So.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to hire Julie.
Second.
You pick who did it. Motion has been made several times and seconded to hire Julie. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? Thank you, Julie. Whole business, these policies, we need possible adoption on. We've looked at these already. Policy E14 is disease mitigation. This is a recommended one. I don't believe there were any changes
No,
suggested.
the only thing we changed, and then it came back again, was getting rid of AIDS.
Right. So what is your pleasure with policy E14?
To adopt.
Motion's been made to adopt E14. Is there a second? Katie has seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have adopted it. On what's it? 15?
15.
Okay. Policy A1, school board policies, rules, adoption. Are there any questions about this one? We had a first read before. Don't believe there was anything earth shattering on this one or changes made. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made by Adrian, second by Scott, that we adopt policy A1. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Adopted on the same 6/14. 15. All right, C3, we're not doing, we're skipping that one, scratching it, goodbye. C10, community engagement and vision. This is a new policy, but not the first time we're seeing it. I don't believe we had anything that we went and set back on it. So motion's been made and seconded by Katie. Motion by Adrian, seconded Katie to adopt C10. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Can't spell tonight.
It's still a 15.
It is still a 15, not for much longer. C7, board member education. This is also a new policy. Do I have a motion? Katie's moved this one, seconded by Scott to adopt C7. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And one more. C8, board superintendent relation. This is also a new one. Katie's moved to adopt it. Scott seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And it has been adopted. Now, it's not the 23rd, it's still the 15th. Okay, before it turns into the 23rd. Board comments, my first one, I have a comment. I want to thank Josh for representing our board tomorrow night at graduation. I really appreciate it. I wish I didn't have to work and could be there because I love going to graduation, but I appreciate you stepping up and doing that for us.
Be fun, thanks.
And you get a flower. It's nice.
All right.
Yeah.
That's good. Get too many of those.
Does anyone else have a board comment?
No, I'm just.
I do.
Today is my 55th wedding anniversary.
Is he gonna have made you a candlelight dinner when you get back?
We're celebrating on the weekend. We've already decided that.
Good, I hope you do something fun. That's awesome. Any other board comments? Yes, sir.
I've been on this board, not this board, but school boards, elementary, this one for 14 years. Which I think I hit 500 meetings not too long ago. We've had a lot of arguments, we've had a lot of heated discussions and disagreements, but I've never seen anything as disorderly and unprofessional as that meeting cabinet a few weeks ago. The actions of several members of the public, some of our board members, our teachers, and even a principal were completely unacceptable. It was so violent, we actually now have to have police presence at our meetings. So I went in Robert's rules, dug into it, how to deal with unruly board members and non-members, which are members of public. I'm not going to talk about the board member thing, because I think we'll do that next month. I'll let the professionals talk about that. But as for the non-members, I didn't know if you knew it, but the board chair has absolute power to throw anyone out of a meeting. You have to have a reason. But if somebody's being disorderly or rude or interrupting people, it doesn't need a vote. You can just have them leave. And now that we have police presence here, they can be escorted out. This is going to stop. I mean, we are, as a board, we are far from united, but we don't need to add to it.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Jeff, very much.
I think tonight was a great example of how we can,
Even the last meeting,
in the last meeting.
we were divided on a principle and we came together at the end. And it's the way it should be. It's the way it was.
I do know now, I did try to mute everyone, but I didn't know they could unmute themselves. So that didn't work. It was very hard, and I will never try to run a meeting from Zoom again, because you just cannot do it.
Well, I thought the meeting was pretty much canceled. I had no idea that was going to happen.
So anyway, it's in the past. I appreciate you looking into it and saying it. And yes, we will be talking more about it and ways that we can all come together more in July.
When we believe that there's only one board member physically in attendance, I think we need to. I feel
I met with Lois. I hope you don't mind me telling this. The next day or a couple days later, and one of the questions she asked me is, why didn't you adjourn? And the reason that I didn't want to adjourn, I was so focused on trying to get input on how to move forward that that's all I could see. In hindsight, which is 2020 every time, it would have been better to do that.
Thank you.
So
Or
I
just recess until we
recess.
So I now have a greater understanding of all those tools and the fact that, well, Lauren and I talked about it. She said, I'm going to be in the building. We don't really need to have everybody there. To have a discussion on how we're going to move forward.
Yeah,
So
it's hard when they're.
At the time, the purpose of that meeting was to do a 15-minute thing to say, this is what we're going to do next. It became something very different.
Right. And you're the one who's, I don't like surprises. I think everybody was quite surprised about what that meeting meant.
So we all learn and we all move on, and hopefully we continue this collaboration. So, okay. I don't have any public comments here. Randy? I don't have a podium tonight, but.
That's okay. My name is Randy Miles from Chester. I was going to start with the good and end with the bad, but I'm going to start with the bad and then with the good. Jeff touched base on one of the reasons why I'm here. That meeting and things that were going on were really bad. I see we're in a different place, and that's good. I'm a bit concerned that there were no new policy changes toward conduct, because the behavior really needs to be looked at. If you look at those meetings, and if you need times and dates, I have it. But you really need to be accountable for what you've said, what you've done. We're setting examples for everybody. You're on Zoom, people talk about it, the papers get it. It was bad. So I'm really disappointed that there wasn't more power in the conduct. I've made verbal complaints, I've made written complaints, and I haven't heard anything back, and I find that a little bit distasteful. So I don't know where this board is going forward. I have high hopes, but I really think this needs to be looked at and more policies put in place. You should be holding yourself to a higher state, and you're not.
Randy, isn't it evident that we're working on it?
This is, well.
It is evident. You cannot, I'm sorry, I came here tonight because it really bothers me. I'm a person of principle, and to say something negative and insulting to not only board members, But the citizens who have different viewpoints, neither one was right or wrong, they're just different viewpoints. You need to be looking at that and taking information in before you make decisions, before you have comments, before you do things. There's many issues these boards are gonna face that are gonna be powerful and very involving. And to do that display, really a policy needs to be put in place to stop that. I know there's a lot of good members here. I know there's a lot of good intentions. And I want to see that because I love the school as much as everybody else. Enough said with that. Now on a good note. Todd mentioned the back, fixing that. That will be an ongoing thing. My son will be graduating, his Eagle project will be done. But the money and the donations and everything is going to keep coming in. And we're going to keep that going because for years that got tabled and pushed off. And it really is a beautiful spot. And I think it will really be a diamond for the school when it's all said and done. And I'd like to see more community and more student involvement. We got some new student council. So I think next year we can work with them and see if they can help get the word out more and get more involvement. It really is a beautiful spot. And I think it's going to be well worth it for the school.
Thank you.
That's all.
And
Thank you.
congratulations to your son on graduating and becoming an Eagle Scout.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Do you have any hands? Is anybody left? Okay, policies approved at this meeting. E14, A1, C7, C10, C8. All on 6/15/23. Just in case there was any question. Next meeting, all board retreat, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. on July 20th. Location is,
Cornerstone Room at Jackson Gore.
is that where we were last time?
It is.
Yes.
Okay. Our next regular meeting will be August 17th, and that will be here and on Zoom. My self-assessment. Okay. Board members are given and have read agenda and background materials prior to the meeting.
Yes.
I want to look into that, Kate, to make sure that like it gets updated automatically. Like it's a Google Doc, so it should, like if a change gets made, you should be able to access it at any time.
For
And have
some
it.
reason, I had all different policies on mine and were discussed here.
Yeah.
Okay. And I had the most recent email.
Okay. I'm just going to put a check mark there so I remember to look into it. Board members are respectful of each other and the public and the administration. Everyone agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Board members handle conflict openly and constructively. Board members focus on the role and responsibility of the board. Board members act as a team once a decision has been made and work collaboratively throughout the decision-making process. I think that, Steve, you hit the nail right on the head when you said, you can see that we're working toward, how did you exactly say it?
It's evident that we're working toward the goals that Randy has talked about. That
Yes.
we're civil,
We
that
are,
we speak to each
yes,
other. that
we are
collaborate.
making progress and
Go right down the
I think that that's wonderful. And I appreciate everybody's effort. So with that said, do I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. Scott and 8:58.